The void trembled, accompanied by a sonic boom, as though some dreadful force descended from the heavens. Luo Jiushi sighed from afar. Wei Xingping has truly unleashed his killing move. Yin Xiaoqiao looked bewildered. What is it? Gravity not only acts within the Guangyuan celestial domain, but can also connect to the outer realms. Wei Xingping's killing move involved summoning falling stars from beyond the domain to obliterate his enemies. Luo Jiushi shook her head repeatedly. Yin Xiaoqiao was also terrified. Summoning falling stars from beyond the domain, what a defiant technique. It must be noted that these stars are ancient entities, each capable of birthing a small world. This is akin to using entire worlds to strike at Nangong Hao. Who could withstand such an assault? The sect leader of the English female sect spoke coldly. Should Nangong Hao withstand this attack, he might earn the right to enter the primordial saint ranking. Upon hearing this evaluation, the members of the English female sect were deeply shaken. The primordial saint ranking, that was a mysterious list established by the Qianjij, requiring immense effort and resources. Those who earned a place on it were all extraordinary figures, revered by thousands. If Nangong Hao were to ascend, one could only imagine the upheaval it would cause. Meanwhile, Nangong Hao also observed the meteors plummeting from above. Indeed, the power of the Great Path knows no bounds. It depends merely on one's application. The countless meteors streaked across the sky, descending rapidly, engulfed in raging flames, a sight most terrifying. A mere saint would likely be obliterated by a single impact. Above, Nangong Hao manifested a myriad of black holes, voraciously consuming all. As the first meteor fell, it directly entered the black hole, swallowed whole, creating not even a ripple. Witnessing this, Wei Xingping did not panic. He grinned wickedly. These stars are countless and can be summoned at any moment. Now, it is a contest of whether you can maintain the path of space longer, or I can summon longer. This is a contest of the reserves of spiritual energy within. Generally speaking, a Saint King would undoubtedly possess greater reserves than a saint. Although saints have their internal realms, said to be infinitely abundant in spiritual energy, the Great Path's energy consumption is too great. Even a small world cannot bear it. Wei Xingping had firmly grasped this notion, so he directly summoned a meteor shower to rain down upon Nangong Hao. He made it clear that he intended to exploit his superior realm to bully him mercilessly. Nangong Hao gazed at the descending meteors, the black holes densely clustered around him. He did not stand idly by awaiting death. Instead, he tore open a rift in space and instantaneously appeared beside Wei Xingping to launch an attack. Wei Xingping manipulated the gravity in response, enhancing his speed to the utmost, allowing him to deftly evade all attacks. In an astonishing display, Wei Xingping appeared as insubstantial as a mere paper figure, effortlessly evading the fierce onslaught of Nangong Hao's strikes, as if swept away by the wind, unharmed. Nangong Hao felt as though he were striking against soft cotton, his strength dissipated. At the Saint King realm, Wei Xingping had grasped the essence of the Tao to a terrifying degree, making him a formidable opponent. Despite Nangong Hao's rapid assault, he found his own energy significantly depleted. How is it? Your strength seems to have waned considerably. I can sense your punches growing weaker, Wei Xingping taunted. The onlookers shook their heads in agreement. Even the red-haired elder from the council chamber had drawn a conclusion. If Nangong Hao were to summon the Chaos Blue Lotus, perhaps he might stand a chance of victory. However, he hesitated, for the appearance of the Chaos Blue Lotus would likely provoke the envy of many. The leader of the new sect remarked coolly, not to mention others, even I find myself intrigued. Should the Chaos Blue Lotus appear, I might attempt to seize it. Were it not for the uncertainty surrounding the existence of the Chaos Blue Lotus within Nangong Hao, and the fear that killing him might destroy it, many powerful figures would have made their move to assassinate him long ago. Indeed, Nangong Hao had exhausted a significant amount of power, as the spatial Tao was exceptionally taxing on his spiritual energy. Yet, he remained unperturbed, revealing intricate divine patterns upon his body. The Tao of all things. This particular Tao enabled him to swiftly absorb the surrounding spiritual energy, allowing for immediate utilization without the need for refinement. The surging spiritual force flowed into his body, instantly replenishing his strength. Wei Xingping's astonishment and fury intensified. The Tao of all things. Just how much Tao power do you possess? A few varieties, but they are unnecessary against you. Nangong Hao replied nonchalantly. Upon hearing this, Wei Xingping's murderous intent surged to unprecedented levels. He sensed that Nangong Hao's talent was indeed terrifying. A 4-star saint could comprehend 2 or 3 Tao powers. What would happen if he ascended to the Saint King realm? This boy must be eliminated. Wei Xingping unleashed his power, summoning the force of the solar star to incinerate Nangong Hao. Unfaltering, Nangong Hao decided that since Wei Xingping deemed his punches weak, he would resolve matters with his fists. God-slaying, demon-extinguishing fist. Nangong Hao assumed his stance, preparing to unleash this astonishing blow once more. As he began to gather his strength, the members of the Ying Nu sect were collectively shaken, as if they perceived celestial beings coalescing behind him, emanating an aura of devastation. Wei Xingping, witnessing the figures gathering behind Nangong Hao, was struck by terror. What is this power? Nangong Hao's fist struck forward, exuding a force capable of slaying gods and extinguishing demons, annihilating the cosmos. No, no, Wei Xingping howled in terror. He felt an overwhelming dread, as if celestial beings from the heavens had come to personally execute him. How could this be happening? Who is this youth? Why does he have divine beings backing him? I do not wish to die, Wei Xingping screamed in despair. Yet, the ethereal figure behind Nangong Hao remained relentless, delivering a punch that landed squarely on Wei Xingping. With a splatter of blood, Wei Xingping suffered an unprecedented injury. He felt his bones shatter within, his spiritual meridians severely disrupted. Imperial artifact! Save me! Wei Xingping frantically summoned his family's imperial artifact, desperate to escape. Nangong Hao pondered briefly before smiling and saying, "Forget it. I am averse to complications. You may as well perish." With that, he cast a jade slip containing images of the former young city, Lord Wei Lan, who had confessed to his connections with the Blood Demon sect and his misdeeds. Upon the unveiling of these images, the members of the Ying Nu sect, still reeling from Nangong Hao's victory, erupted in anger. The city of Tianyong was their vassal, yet it had audaciously communicated with demonic forces, bringing disgrace upon the Ying Nu sect. More alarmingly, Tianyong City intended to take Nu sect disciples as concubines. This was an outright rebellion and humiliation. Tianyong City should not be allowed to continue existing. The leader of the Ying Nu sect declared in fury, "Where is the punishment hall? Annihilate them." An elder from the punishment hall received the order and then struck out with a mighty blow toward Tianyong City. The arrival of the Ying Nu sect's powerful members was nothing short of earth-shattering. Moreover, with an imperial artifact safeguarding the punishment hall, the hand that struck out was entwined with golden threads, representing unparalleled Dao power. Mountain River Palm, with the ability to shatter mountains and reverse rivers. A mere sweep could level hundreds of thousands of miles. Yet this was not the full awakening of the imperial artifact. The imperial artifact of Tianyong City trembled, awakening in full force. It was a magnificent tripod adorned with various intricate patterns. As it awakened, the mouth of the tripod emitted brilliant light, enveloping Tianyong City in protection. The incoming palm struck with ferocious intensity. The collision of the two imperial artifacts unleashed a shockwave that swept across a million-mile radius, annihilating countless lives in an instant. While the core of Tianyong City was safeguarded, its affiliated forces suffered catastrophic losses. This calamity reduced Tianyong City from a first-rate power to a third-rate one. No! Wei Xingping bellowed in rage, his eyes nearly bursting with fury. He had come seeking justice for his son, but instead of finding it, he had nearly brought about the ruin of Tianyong City. The Ying Nu sect was excessively tyrannical. They disregarded Wei Xingping's pleas for explanation and offered him no chance for apology, intent only on annihilation. Thus, even if Wei Xingping wished to speak, it was far too late. He could only flee. I must escape quickly. Perhaps there is a glimmer of hope. Yet, Nangong Hao transformed into a streak of radiant light, blocking Wei Xingping's path, the Puemo grass swaying behind him. Devour order. Wei Xingping, in fear, shouted, "I will fight you to the death." With a furious roar, amid the swirling white fluff, Wei Xingping's body rapidly expanded into a massive sphere, threatening to self-destruct. The explosive force of a Saint King-level expert would undoubtedly be immense. Even members of the Ying Nu sect contemplated intervening to suppress this power, preventing significant damage to the surrounding environment and maintaining the sect's dignity. Nangong Hao, however, scoffed. "Only now do you think of self-detonation? You underestimate me gravely." The flurries of white fluff suddenly coiled around shimmering divine patterns. These patterns were both peculiar and graceful, making the white fluff appear as if divine spirits hovered in midair, capable of absorbing all power. This was the fusion of the Tao of all things divine patterns and the devouring order. The 3,000 Taos were originally complementary, able to attack and assist one another. Nangong Hao had comprehended this from Wei Xingping's earlier battle. where it was evident that he had combined the Tao of gravity with the order of stars to summon falling meteors. With Nan Gonghao's exceptional talent, he had, in a mere moment, united the Tao of all things with the devouring order, as both were capable of consuming power. Once combined, the power of the Pu Mo grass surged dramatically, absorbing Wei Xingping's self-destructive force entirely, and then rejuvenating Nan Gonghao. Nan Gonghao divided the energy into two portions. One, the flesh and blood energy, was directed into the Yu Huang seal, while the Tao power flowed into the Chaos Blue Lotus. The gravity Tao upon the Chaos Blue Lotus ignited, and a golden light of enlightenment erupted from Nan Gonghao. Around him, the gravity Tao swirled, dramatically altering the surrounding environment. Mountains floated, and feathers weighed as heavy as mountains. Everything flipped, returned to normal, and flipped once more, creating a bizarre realm of gravity. Witnessing this spectacle, the women of Ying Nu Sec's council chamber fell into silence. After a long while, the hot-tempered, red-haired elder sighed. Such talent is indeed terrifying. How much better it would be if he lacked the ancient mark. The other elders' expressions shifted as they shared the same sentiment. Nan Gonghao was truly a prodigy. Had he not been pursued by the ancient lands, there would be no force in the world willing to reject him. In that time, Nan Gonghao would shine as the brightest star in Zhongzhou, undoubtedly inciting the 7 greatest powers to vie for him, resulting in fierce conflict among themselves. Go take a look at the ancestral sage ranking. Suddenly spoke the leader of the British female sect. The elders perked up, their spirits lifting with a hint of tension. Given Nan Gonghao's performance, he undoubtedly qualified for the ancestral sage ranking. The only question remained, what position would he attain? In Qianji Pavilion, the foremost of the 7 great powers in Zhongzhou, a force that has existed since ancient times with an inextricable connection to the ancient lands. Its reputation does not stem solely from its antiquity and might. Rather, it is renowned for the formidable predictive abilities of its core members. Each of their prophecies has never faltered, granting them a lofty status, as who would not wish to know what the future holds. Not long ago, Qianji Pavilion unveiled the Ancestral Sage Ranking, a stone tablet prominently situated at the entrance on Qilin Cliff. This tablet records the prodigies above the Sage Realm, detailing their strength, rankings, names, and affiliated forces. The Ancestral Sage Ranking operates independently. Once a prodigy is worthy of inclusion, the list automatically updates. Qianji Pavilion has asserted that even if its own forces were to perish, the ranking would still update autonomously, and it has never erred. The prodigies recorded are invariably formidable, and their levels are infallible. Countless prodigies have attempted to challenge their ranks, only to find themselves unsuccessful, which has further bolstered the prestige of the Ancestral Sage Ranking. Thus, various forces in Zhongzhou send representatives to guard this place, ensuring they receive prompt updates whenever the list changes, hoping to entice some powerful figures. As prodigies are inevitably prone to isolation, there was a notable instance where a secondary force, by sheer fortune, secured a top prodigy who had just made the Ancestral Sage Ranking. That prodigy surged through realms, ultimately reaching the threshold of the Emperor level. Although he ventured beyond the domain, he brought substantial benefits back to that secondary force, elevating it to a first-rate status. Many aspire to replicate such fortune. At this moment, the envoys of numerous forces stared blankly at the stone tablet. Alas, the Ancestral Sage Ranking has not changed in hundreds of years. Who knows how long we must remain here? Sighed an envoy from the Invincible Dynasty. A disciple from the Battle God Palace beside him responded with a wry smile. Indeed, it has changed. With that exclamation, the previously listless envoys turned their gazes, and their astonishment grew. The Ancestral Sage Ranking had undergone a transformation. The tablet, which could record 100 prodigies, began to blur, illuminating only the name in the 100th position. This signified that new entrants had emerged on the list. The crowd became electrified, fixating intently on that name. Despite only being in the 100th position, it was still a cause for pride. After all, in a populous Zhongzhou, where cultivators are as numerous as the stars, to be recognized among the 100 by the Ancestral Sage Ranking is a monumental honor. In many smaller regions, this would be akin to being a founding ancestor, and even first-rate forces would regard such individuals with utmost importance. No, the ranking is still rising, exclaimed the envoy from the Invincible Dynasty. Others gasped, their eyes widening as they stared at the stone tablet. Chapter 177, The Terrifying East Wilderness. Competition for the top 3. The name in the 100th position radiated brilliance, ascending swiftly. The 99th name lit up. The 98th, 97th, 96th, and so forth followed suit, with the crowd fixated on the name as it continued to rise. Their hearts raced in tandem. For to ascend the ancestral sage, ranking signifies one is already among the elite prodigies. Such rapid elevation, crossing 10 ranks at a time, further attests to the exceptional caliber of this prodigy. Not only did the second and third-rate forces become frantic, but even first-rate and supreme forces felt the stirrings of excitement. Many envoys prepared their messages, intending to inform their respective powers the moment the name stabilized, eager to secure this prodigy for themselves. Soon, the name settled at the 60th position, causing everyone's hearts to momentarily halt. The top 60 ranks are indicative of those destined to become quasi-emperors. With a chance to contend for the emperor realm, all eyes shone with fervor as they gazed at the stone tablet. Once the ranking stabilized, the list returned to normal, and the glowing name began to coalesce, finally revealing itself. Ancestral Sage ranking, 60th place, 7-star Sage Realm. Name, Inxia. Affiliated force, Invincible Dynasty, Zi Guanho. The expressions of the many envoys, once filled with excitement, immediately stiffened. Though they did not recognize Inxia, the name of the Invincible Dynasty's Zi Guanho was well known. He was a supreme sage king, a pillar of the Invincible Dynasty, one of Zhongzhou's mightiest forces. The envoys quickly abandoned their attempts to recruit, opting instead to inform their powers of this development. It was a significant matter that warranted caution against the Zi Guanho. Meanwhile, the envoy from the Invincible Dynasty, after regaining his composure, burst into laughter. "My apologies, everyone. I did not expect the commotion to stem from our house. Pardon the disturbance." The others, witnessing the envoy's smug demeanor, felt a pang of envy, yet offered hollow congratulations. Just then, another exclamation rang out. "Look, it has changed again." The many envoys, taken aback, turned to the ancestral sage ranking, and indeed, it had transformed once more. What a world! How could it change twice in one day? True to form, every name on the list twisted, with only the 100th name illuminating. Following this, that name began to rise, again leaping 10 positions in a single bound, even faster than before, causing the crowd to gasp in astonishment. This was a top prodigy, with strength and talent surpassing the previous one. Everyone thought this, their anticipation intensifying. Soon, the name settled at the 30th position, a significant 30 ranks above Inxia. The top 30 could establish a first-rate force and had a tremendous opportunity to become an emperor. The crowd erupted in a frenzy as they witnessed the emergence of a prodigy in the top 30. A throng of people rushed forward, disregarding everything, believing that by merely being closer to the stone tablet, they could somehow claim this prodigy for themselves. As the light of the name faded, it revealed itself on the ancestral sage ranking, 30th place, 9-star Sage Realm. Name, Chu Xiaoyuan. Affiliated force, Sword Sect. The crowd, once filled with excitement, was left dumbfounded. What a farce. Another member from a supreme force. This time, the Sword Sect members were elated, wearing broad smiles as they repeatedly said, "My apologies for the disturbance. We at the Sword Sect seem to have made quite the ruckus this time. We will certainly be more cautious in the future." The crowd internally scoffed, thinking, "Do you truly expect there to be a next time?" Seeing the envy in the eyes of the crowd, the Sword Sect disciple felt even more triumphant. He glanced at the ranking once more to confirm, only to be met with disbelief. What in the world is happening? The list has changed again. The crowd was left in bewilderment, turning their heads in unison. Indeed, the rankings had once again shifted. As before, the ascent was swift. Yet this time it was even more rapid, which was truly alarming. Observers, relying on their experience, speculated that this individual might rise to around the 20th position. This was a time of great contention, as the long-stagnant Huanggu Shengrenbang had suddenly begun to tremble. It was foreseeable that once these three formidable figures emerged, Zhongzhou would be thrown into chaos. Now, it was merely a question of how formidable that one individual could truly be. Under the anxious gaze of the multitude, the ranking continued to climb, ultimately halting at the 20th position. Huanggu Shengrenbang, 20th place, 9-star Sage Realm. Name, Chun Shiqing. Affiliation, Jixia Academy. A bittersweet smile spread across the faces of the onlookers, who found nothing surprising in this revelation. Jixia Academy, founded by Qianzhi, had nurtured countless prodigies. In fact, many powerful individuals from the 7 supreme forces had trained there. Thus, it was entirely natural for such a person to emerge from its ranks. In the next moment, the rankings shifted once more. However, the observers had grown accustomed to such fluctuations, observing with a calm demeanor. Soon, they realized that this ascent was even faster than before. Could it possibly reach the top 10? Unthinkable. Instinctively, everyone shook their heads. The top 10 were the pinnacle of prodigies, nearly all heirs to the greatest powers. How could they be surpassed? Indeed, the ranking halted at the 15th position. This was still astonishing enough to incite a scramble among the 7 supreme forces. Yet, when the name materialized, they understood the futility of their ambitions. Huanggu Shengrenbang, 15th place, 9-star Sage Realm. Name, Sun Si. Affiliation, Jixia Academy. A collective sigh escaped the crowd. This was not solely for the 2 disciples of Jixia Academy, but because they knew that both Chun Shiqing and Sun Su were students of the White Horse Academy in the Eastern Wilderness. One was the 3rd-ranked flower, while the other held the 2nd place as the scholar. Above them was a top scholar. If these 2 were so accomplished, how exceptional could the top scholar be? Indeed, the Huanggu Shengrenbang twisted once more. A radiant name shot up like a bolt, ascending with such speed that it left the onlookers aghast. A terrifying thought crept into their minds. Before they could fully contemplate it, the name solidified. Huanggu Shengrenbang, 9th place, 9-star Sage Realm. Name, Shen Kongwu. Affiliation, Jixia Academy. This was in fact the top scholar. His entry into the 9th position was utterly terrifying. For the top 10 of the Huanggu Shengrenbang had the potential to become emperors. What manner of place was this Eastern Wilderness? Was it not merely a remote region? How could it simultaneously cultivate multiple prodigies of the Huanggu rankings? The crowd was filled with shock and hastily notified their respective powers. They urged them to rush to the Eastern Wilderness, for there might be great fortunes to be found. In that moment, many felt as though whoever possessed the Eastern Wilderness would dominate the world. At that instant, a thunderous roar resonated across the sky, akin to the end of days. The numerous envoys before the Huanggu Shengrenbang, who were busy relaying messages to their families, looked up in astonishment. They beheld the heavens flashing with lightning, howling winds, and a multitude of laws manifesting, intertwining in a divine chain of order. Was this a celestial phenomenon? What could it mean? Could the ascent of several individuals to the rankings within a single day have provoked such a cosmic response? Many envoys were left perplexed. The top 3 of the Huanggu rankings were contending fiercely, defending the stone tablet. A voice, filled with authority, echoed from afar in Qianjij. Upon hearing this, all were taken aback. What is this? Someone is vying for a position among the top 3 of the Huanggu rankings, even invoking a celestial phenomenon. Even Qianjij was compelled to intervene and stabilize the stone tablet. Did this not imply that the contest among these 3 could potentially damage this extraordinary stone tablet, existing for countless ages? Who could be so ruthless? Could that individual truly ascend to the top position? Chapter 178, A Battle of Names, terrifying beyond measure. The previously stabilized Huanggu Shengrenbang twisted once more. This time, it was unlike any before. The name did not gradually rise from the 100th position. It did not even ascend swiftly. Instead, it forcefully inserted itself at the very pinnacle, as if a miracle had descended from the heavens. This caused many observers to gasp in astonishment. Who is this? To descend like an ancient sovereign? Is this an attempt to suppress all prodigies? What realm of genius could this be? Has a being from the ancient lands emerged once more? Or has some supreme force summoned of former emperors descended back to this world? The forceful emergence of that name did not sit well with the top 3 of the Huanggu Shengrenbang. These 3 individuals were heirs of the 3 supreme forces, the War God Palace, the Sword Sect, and the Invincible Dynasty. They were immensely proud, and even inscribing a name upon the stone tablet contained immense power. At this moment, the names of all 4 competitors surged on the tablet, radiating the brilliance of the Tao as they mutually suppressed one another. Boom! A thunderbolt, as thick as a barrel, crashed down from the heavens. This was an extraordinary phenomenon. It was unclear which of the 4 names had triggered it, but the sheer ferocity of the thunder sent the onlookers retreating in haste. A chilling wind swept through, like the wails of 10,000 ghosts, or the malevolent aura of the underworld, coalescing into frost from the 9 abysses, threatening to shatter souls. Torrential rain poured down like a waterfall from the heavens. Each droplet bore the weight of a sovereign's might, and together they formed an overwhelmingly terrifying force. Flames erupted from the ground, the heart of the earth igniting, said to be the fire of life, capable of nurturing all existence, yet also capable of annihilating it. The earth beneath the stone tablet trembled, as though it could no longer bear the weight of the monument. All of this left the envoys present in a state of trepidation. They had always known that securing a position among the top 3 of the Huanggu rankings was a remarkable feat. However, they could never have imagined that merely a few names could incite such a cataclysmic conflict. If their true forms were to appear, would it not bring about the end of days? Yet, this was not the most frightening aspect. The most terrifying question remained. Who was this being that sought to ascend directly to the top? This name stood resolutely against the names of the 3 prodigies, showing no signs of yielding. The observers felt a chill run down their spines, a deep-seated fear taking root within them. The heavens of Zhongzhou were on the verge of chaos. Just then, a radiant light sped toward them from the distance. It was a golden feathered bird, renowned as the fastest of all avian creatures, yet gentle in nature and uninterested in worldly matters. Hence, many powers employed it as a messenger to convey their messages. The envoys gathered before the stone tablet were so focused on it that they hardly noticed the arrival of the bird. Eventually, the golden-feathered bird landed upon the envoy stationed by the Ying sect, prompting him to react. The envoy of the Ying sect hurriedly opened the communication tube, yet his gaze remained fixed upon the stone tablet. He hastily skimmed the contents of the message and discovered that the sect was inquiring about the situation on the Huanggu Shengrenbang. The envoy paused, pondering whether the sect had gleaned some knowledge. After a brief moment of contemplation, he penned a succinct note: a monumental shift. A supreme prodigy is contending for the top position of the Huanggu Shengrenbang, overpowering the top 3 prodigies. The situation remains unclear. The golden-feathered bird transformed into a streak of light and sped away. True to its reputation, it reached the Ying sect in no time, landing in the hands of an elder. The elder swiftly unrolled the slip of paper, glanced at it, and was left in utter shock. Impossible. This individual was an elder of the disciplinary hall, responsible for various affairs of the sect. Usually composed and steady, she had never displayed such a lack of poise. Witnessing her exclamation, the nearby elders felt their hearts leap. What was the matter? Speak up. The red-haired elder, known for his fiery temperament and impulsive nature, witnessed his senior sister's astonishment upon reading the letter, yet she remained silent, prompting him to urge her for a response. The elder in charge of the affairs, a striking beauty, bore a distorted expression of disbelief. Uncertain whether to laugh or cry as she exclaimed, "Master, we have a grave situation. Someone is competing for the top position on the Huanggu Shengrenbang." What? Impossible. The top 3 are all extraordinary talents. Rumors suggested that this generation's emperor would emerge solely from among them. Who dares to challenge them? The answer was obvious. It was undoubtedly that individual from outside. A group of elders, taken aback, rose to their feet, some even questioning in alarm. The entire council hall descended into chaos. A far cry from the dignified presence of the supreme powers. Under normal circumstances, the leader of the Ying sect would have chastised these sisters for their lack of decorum. However, in this moment, she could not afford to do so and commanded sternly, "Inquire further." The elder in charge, eager to know the outcome, promptly dispatched the golden light sparrow once more. The elders watched with bated breath as it took flight, their hearts yearning to accompany in pursuit of the results. Even the leader of the Ying sect's countenance fluctuated. She pondered whether she should seek to recruit Nangong Hao into their sect if he indeed claimed the top spot on the Huanggu Shengrenbang. The pursuit from the ancient lands was no trivial matter. Meanwhile, outside the Qinji Pavilion, the stone tablet displaying the Huanggu Shengrenbang bore cracks after a purple lightning bolt struck it. The assembled envoys were left in shock. Although the exact material composition of the tablet was unknown, many had heard rumors that it contained materials used for crafting imperial artifacts. How could a mere clash of names cause such damage? The gravity of the situation was overwhelming, intensifying the urgency to learn the outcome of the battle. Yet, at that moment, the envoy from the Ying sect received another message via the Golden Light Sparrow. Feeling somewhat exasperated, she thought to herself that the sect was overly anxious today. Did they really need to rush so much to learn the outcome? She still wished to witness the battle unfold. However, she did not dare to hesitate and swiftly relayed the news of the stone tablets fracturing back to the Ying sect. Naturally, this caused another stir, but inquiries continued unabated. The envoy could only respond patiently. The Golden Light Sparrow continued its back-and-forth flights, each time returning to the Ying sect with increasingly shocking news. For instance, there were reports of torrential lightning cascading down, coalescing into a golden dragon that sought to suppress the stone tablet. Additionally, fierce winds transformed into colossal blades of steel, attempting to shatter the tablet. There were even accounts of flame giants and corrosive blood rains, along with resonating sound waves that split the heavens. Eventually, a colossal hand emerged from beyond, attempting to seize the tablet, evidently a formidable force from outside, mistakenly believing it to be a treasure of immense value. Yet, the Qinji Pavilion successfully thwarted each assault, culminating in the intervention of a powerful Saint King who shielded the tablet from all forces. The envoys were left dumbfounded, their minds rendered motionless, unable to comprehend how such terrifying events could transpire. The clash of four names had incited attacks from beyond, requiring the protection of a Saint King. However, the turmoil gradually subsided. As the extraordinary phenomena faded, the crowd understood that a result was imminent, and they surged forward in a frenzy, eager to witness the outcome firsthand. The stone tablet housing the Huanggu, Shengrenbang, now bore numerous cracks, yet the names remained visible. In the first position stood Chapter 179 Huanggu, Shengrenbang, a catastrophe. Huanggu Shengrenbang. First place, 5-star Saint Realm. Name, Hanin. Affiliated power, Shengma Sect. Huanggu Shengrenbang. Second place, 4-star Saint Realm. Name, Fa Wu Hashang. Affiliated power, Shitian Lei Yin Temple. Huanggu Shengrenbang. Third place, 3-star Saint Realm. Name, Ho Yi. Affiliated power, Baiman Domain, Wu Clan. Further down were the 4th and 5th places belonging to various powers. The onlookers continued to scan the list, growing increasingly astonished. The rankings had not changed. After such a commotion, no new names had emerged on the Huanggu Shengrenbang. This left many in a state of bewilderment, even feeling a sense of absurdity, as if they had been soundly beaten and then informed, "Oh dear, we mistook you for someone else. Our apologies." It was utterly inconceivable that the sudden appearance of a name could stir such chaos, yet leave no trace on the Huanggu Shengrenbang. The envoys wore expressions akin to having ingested a dead fly, unable to articulate their thoughts. They swiftly contacted their respective families, their words varying but conveying the same sentiment. The newcomer had overstepped their bounds, foolishly attempting to vie for the top position, only to be rejected, leaving no name on the leaderboard. This news rapidly spread among the major powers, eliciting mockery and disdain. The top 3 prodigies were all supreme elites from Zhongzhou. How could they be easily surpassed? It was initially thought that the newcomer could contend against 3 adversaries, and even if defeated, secure a position within the top 5. To their astonishment, not even a name was etched in the rankings. They felt their anticipation had been in vain. Even the Ying sect received word of this development. The elder in charge, upon reading the message in the council hall, fell into silence. The other elders felt a sense of relief. They had previously been concerned about how they would handle the situation if Nangonghao truly ascended to the top of the rankings. It seemed their worries had been unfounded. "Call Elder Luo Jiushi back," one suggested. "Yes, that young man has no chance of turning the tables. Also, instruct Qin Shui Yao to sever ties with him. At worst, we can offer Nangonghao some compensation to voluntarily dissolve the engagement. The pursuit from the ancient lands is not to be trifled with. We cannot approach that young man lightly." A chorus of elders engaged in fervent discussion, collectively rejecting Nangonghao. Yet, amidst their disdain, the red-haired elder sensed something amiss. It shouldn't be this way. Nangonghao faced 3 opponents and shattered the Huanggu Shengrenbang. How can he not be worthy of even a ranking? At this utterance, the council hall fell into silence. The other elders began to realize the inconsistency. "I have recalled something." The leader of the Ying sect spoke gravely. "Quickly inquire further." Hearing the usually composed leader express urgency, the other elders exchanged puzzled glances. What had transpired? Could it be that the elder in charge, in her shock, wide-eyed and flustered, grasped the Golden Light Sparrow, commanding, "Use your utmost speed to go"? The Golden Light Sparrow had already made dozens of trips and was nearly exhausted. However, it had no choice but to obey and hasten towards the Qinji Pavilion. As for the envoys at the Qinji Pavilion, they were idly returning to their posts, engaging in idle chatter, mocking the presumptuous name that had just emerged. They lamented not having seen the newcomer's name clearly amidst the fierce battle. Just then, a resounding voice echoed from within the Qinji Pavilion. "The Huanggu Shengrenbang has shattered, losing its divine essence, and is now irreparably damaged." At this proclamation, the envoys erupted in uproar. What nonsense is this? The Huanggu Shengrenbang, which has existed for countless years, has shattered and cannot be used anymore? Quickly, they connected the dots to the earlier cataclysmic battle. An envoy anxiously inquired, could it be that the recent clash of names destroyed the Huanggu Shengrenbang? Indeed, came the response from within the Qinji pavilion. A collective gasp of disbelief swept through the envoys. Was this some grand jest? For names alone had led to the obliteration of a ranking that had persisted for countless years. This was simply unfathomable. Yet, the envoys swiftly regained their composure. Particularly the envoy from the Ying sect, who loudly demanded, what were the changes on the Huanggu Shengrenbang before it shattered? The anticipation from the multitude was palpable. The strong individuals of Qinji first fell into silence, then sighed. The rankings on the Huanggu Shengrenbang have all retreated by one position, with the new first place being Nangong Hao from the Donghuangyu, a 4-star saint who has now broken through to the 5-star saint realm. Upon hearing this, the crowd was astounded. They had certainly heard of the name Nangong Hao. He had once single-handedly saved the Donghuangyu and suppressed countless powerful figures from Zhongzhou and other peripheral territories. In fact, he had even been pursued in the ancient lands. Prior to this, everyone believed Nangong Hao was doomed, not only due to the pursuit by the forces that he had annihilated, but also because all those coveting the rewards of the ancient lands would hunt him down. However, in such dire circumstances, he had unexpectedly ascended to the top of the Huanggu Shengrenbang. Furthermore, his emergence had shattered the rankings, meaning he would be the last to hold the first position, monopolizing the ages. If one were to claim this was merely a coincidence, the people would undoubtedly disagree. They all understood how arrogant the legendary Nangong Hao was. This man must have done it intentionally. He aimed to obliterate the Huanggu Shengrenbang, asserting his supremacy. The messengers, no longer daring to linger, swiftly dispatched their Jingguang Chue to notify their respective factions and hurried home. With the Huanggu Shengrenbang shattered, there was no need to remain. In an instant, Jingguang Chue filled the skies, racing towards the various factions. Those factions that had just received the news and were ridiculing the situation fell silent upon learning the latest updates. The terror of Nangong Hao surpassed everyone's imagination. Meanwhile, within Yingnu Zong, the elder in charge was taken aback to see the Jingguang Chue returning so swiftly. Why they returned so soon? The Zongzhu of Yingnu Zong reached out, grasping the Jingguang Chue and retrieving the message tube. She wished to personally examine its contents. Upon opening the tube and reading the note, the Zongzhu's initially excited heart calmed, and she lowered her head in contemplation. She had already harbored some suspicions prior to this. Now, seeing the note only served to confirm her thoughts. The other elders gazed at their Zongzhu with curiosity, eager to know the contents of the note. However, the Zongzhu remained silent, leaving them in a state of anxious anticipation, peering curiously yet too apprehensive to inquire. Finally, the Zongzhu raised her head, her face marked by a resolute expression. Summoned the people. The numerous elders felt a tremor in their hearts, sensing that their Zongzhu had made an exceedingly grave decision. The elder in charge immediately stepped forward, responding, Zongzhu, what is your command? Open the mountain gates to welcome the first prodigy of the Huanggu Shengrenbang, Nangong Hao. The Zongzhu of Yingnu Zong's demeanor was solemn. Those present were left in astonishment. Chapter 180. Entering the Yingnu Zong. Terrifying depths, the elders of Yingnu Zong were utterly dumbfounded upon hearing their Zongzhu's words. The first place of the Huanggu Shengrenbang, Nangong Hao. This individual had truly reached the pinnacle. He had forcefully become the foremost prodigy of Zhongzhou, nay, the entire Guangyuan Tianyu. Should this young man survive, he would undoubtedly ascend to the status of an emperor. Such extraordinary talent sent shivers down the spines of the members of Yingnu Zong. Although an emperor might not necessarily be able to contend with the ancient lands, he could certainly escape their pursuit. In the present day, who would dare to pursue Nangong Hao? They would surely face dire consequences. However, the elders soon recalled an important matter, primarily concerning Lu Qinghui. She had a contentious relationship with Luo Jiushi, thus harboring resentment towards the Qin Shuyao sisters. Now that the fiancé of the Qin sisters was so formidable, it was natural for her to extend her animosity. Lu Qinghui's thoughts raced, and she suddenly spoke. Zongzhu, the first place on the Huanggu Shengrenbang, indeed possesses monstrous talent. If it were anyone else, even the 7 supreme beings would treat them with respect, but it seems that they do not extend the same courtesy to Nangong Hao. The other elders frowned in confusion, while the elder from the Deacon Hall realized, is Elder Lu referring to the restrictions of the Tianqin Shinti? Upon uttering this, many elders of Yingnu Zong regained their composure. Indeed, the limitations of the Tianqin Shinti were exceedingly severe. Not to mention the previous restrictions that Nangong Hao had already broken, there remained the 6th heavenly lock chain, which bore the curse of an emperor. For Nangong Hao to break free, He would need to surpass the power of an emperor before reaching the Saint King realm. Yet, no one would believe such a feat possible. Could a saint truly surpass an emperor? What would that imply about the status of an emperor? It is known that in certain barren epochs, no emperors had emerged for 3 generations. This serves to illustrate the rarity and difficulty of reaching the emperor realm. Although Nangong Hao was indeed extraordinary, no one believed he could achieve such heights. Alas, the elder with red hair sighed deeply. What a pity that such monstrous talent is constrained by the Tianqian Shinti. The other elders were equally pained. If not for the hindrance of the Tianqian Shinti, Nangong Hao might have already become a quasi-emperor or even an emperor. What a loss! What a lament! While these individuals were mourning, the Zhongzhu of Yingnu Zone once again spoke indifferently. Open the mountain gates and welcome the guest. The elders were taken aback. Lu Qinghui instinctively remarked, Zhongzhu, I know you and Luo Shimi are at odds, but there's no need to jeopardize the future of the sect over a rivalry. The Zhongzhu's tone was calm, seemingly devoid of any anger. Yet, upon hearing this, Lu Qinghui was horrified, hastily kneeling. Zhongzhu, I meant no offense. Very well. The sect's tournament is approaching, and all vassals will send representatives. Additionally, disciples from other supreme powers will come to observe, even to participate in the competition. This time, I wish to make it more lively. After all, certain individuals have been eyeing Yingnu Zone for far too long. It is time to stir things up. The Zhongzhu of Yingnu Zone stated flatly. The elders felt a chill in their hearts, yet none dared to contradict her, nodding in agreement. Subsequently, the elder from the Deacon Hall swiftly exited the conference hall to open the mountain gates. As she emerged, the Enlightenment golden light surrounding Nangong Hao had just begun to dissipate. This was the first time Nangong Hao had comprehended the Tao for such an extended period. However, it had yielded substantial rewards. Previously, he had mastered several paths, but had used them separately, akin to the various phenomena he had once controlled. Though it appeared he had learned much and possessed great strength, his combat power was actually disjointed, making it arduous to face formidable opponents. For instance, just earlier, facing Wei Xingping at the Saint King level, he had struggled to fight for an extended duration. Now, however, Nangong Hao had integrated all that he had learned. He combined the devouring order and the myriad things Tao, further enhancing the powers of Puma Cao and divine patterns. He also fused the spatial Tao, gravitational Tao, and stellar phenomena, enabling him to summon ancient stars to crush his enemies, along with numerous other applications. The time Tao, causality Tao, and divine I could also be utilized together. The powers generated by these 3 were overwhelmingly formidable. Moreover, other orders were likewise fused one by one. Nangong Hao's current strength had increased at least tenfold compared to before. He confidently asserted that if he were to battle Wei Xingping now, he could annihilate him within 3 moves. How exhilarating! A smile graced Nangong Hao's face as he slowly opened his eyes. In the distance, 3 women were gazing at him with complex expressions. Luo Jiushi, Yin Xiaoqiao, and the elder from the Deacon Hall. Is there something you 3 wish to discuss? Nangong Hao inquired with curiosity. We 3 have been sent by the Zhongzhu to invite young Master Nangong to enter the sect for a discussion. The elder from the Deacon Hall replied courteously. Although her strength far surpassed that of Nangong Hao, she did not exhibit arrogance. After all, Nangong Hao's talent could captivate anyone. Upon hearing that Yingnu Zone wished for him to enter, Nangong Hao was taken aback. He had anticipated that entering Yingnu Zone might be quite troublesome, even hesitating on whether to force his way in. Yet, unexpectedly, the Zhongzhu of Yingnu Zone had sent someone to welcome him. Nangong Hao felt a surge of curiosity, but did not decline. He soared forward, following them into the mountain gates. Yin Xiaoqiao followed closely behind and whispered, Senior, this is my master, as well as the master of Shuyao and the others. From now on, you may simply call me Nangong Hao. Nangong Hao first offered a word of caution before turning his gaze towards the complex expression of Luo Jiushi. Shuyao was inherently stubborn, and Yin'er was somewhat disobedient. The past period had indeed been arduous for the senior. Although Nangong Hao's strength might not be inferior to that of Luo Jiushi, he was, after all, a figure of the Saint King realm. Thus addressing him as senior was not unwarranted. However, Luo Jiushi understood that she could hardly bear the weight of such a title. After all, she was at the bottom of the rankings within the Ying sect, and was even unable to contend with Wei Xingping. If Nangong Hao could defeat Wei Xingping, he could just as easily defeat her. Rather than exhibiting arrogance, Luo Jiushi sighed softly. The Shuyao sisters possess remarkable talent. I advise against taking them away. Previously, Luo Jiushi had harbored discontent towards Nangong Hao, But at this moment, her perspective had shifted considerably. Even if she still felt displeased, she had to endure it. Yet, Nan Gonghao remained unresponsive. He wished to observe how the Qin sisters fared within the Ying sect. If they could acquire knowledge, there would be no harm in staying. The foundational strength of a supreme force is undoubtedly unparalleled by other factions. Upon entering, Nan Gonghao sensed at least a dozen powerful consciousnesses sweeping over him. Those consciousnesses were immense enough to annihilate him. Even though they all belonged to the same Saint King realm, their strengths could vary drastically. Moreover, it was likely that the Ying sect harbored a quasi-emperor in hiding, suppressing their realm to evade the pursuit from the Guanyuan heavenly domain. Although they could not fully unleash their power, the strength of a quasi-emperor was sufficient to obliterate numerous Saint Kings. The path of cultivation is fundamentally about the comprehension of the Great Tao. The deeper one understands a Great Tao, and the more one comprehends, the stronger one becomes. Many prodigies from the central continent embody at least 2 or even 3 Great Taos. As for those at the pinnacle of the rankings, some possess over 10. When 10 Great Tao strike against your single Great Tao, regardless of your realm, you are doomed to suffer. Of course, there are exceptions where individuals cultivate a single Great Tao to its utmost, rendering them invincible. However, such individuals are rare. After much contemplation, Nan Gonghao entered the conference hall. Instantly, countless consciousnesses surged towards him, scrutinizing him incessantly. Nan Gonghao frowned, somewhat displeased, as the space around him began to warp, directly summoning a black hole to devour those consciousnesses. Chapter 181. To marry them? You must obtain my consent first. The consciousnesses that came to survey Nan Gonghao were swallowed by the black hole, vanishing without a trace, akin to a stone sinking into the sea. This elicited visible dissatisfaction from many elders and strong figures of the Ying sect. Lu Qingwei could no longer contain herself and scolded, "Such a lack of decorum. How dare you provoke us within the Ying sect?" Nan Gonghao replied indifferently, "I have yet to inquire. Is this how you entertain guests at the Ying sect?" Upon hearing this, the elders frowned in unison. They had long heard of Nan Gonghao's arrogance, dismissing even the ancient lands. Yet, they never expected him to provoke them while within the Ying sect. "Please take a seat," the sect master of the Ying sect suddenly interjected. The elders, who were about to voice their grievances, found themselves silenced by her words. Someone brought a chair for Nan Gonghao, who graciously accepted and took a seat, observing his nonchalance. The sect master appeared somewhat impressed, remarking, "Others may say you are arrogant, but I perceive a masterly demeanor in you." The surrounding elders wore expressions of complexity, astonished by their sect master's high regard for Nan Gonghao. Nan Gonghao himself was taken aback, pondering if something significant had transpired. Surely, something must have happened. Otherwise, why would the esteemed Ying sect treat him with such courtesy? Though arrogant, he was not foolish enough to believe that everyone in the world would humble themselves before him. The sect master smiled, yet she was enveloped in a divine aura, concealing her appearance and form. Thus no one could discern her expression. Just then, the Qin sisters were brought in. Previously, they had insisted on going out to find Nan Gonghao and had been escorted from the conference hall. Now, upon seeing him, they all sighed in relief. Qin Yin'er joyfully leaped forward, sitting directly on Nan Gonghao's lap and embracing him, exclaiming, "Brother Hao, why did you take so long to arrive? I missed you so much." Witnessing this scene, numerous Ying sect disciples and elders felt their cheeks flush with embarrassment and indignation. Qin Yin'er's position was undeniably awkward. She sat on Nan Gonghao's lap in a manner akin to riding a horse. This posture was exceedingly mortifying. Even Qin Shuiyao could no longer bear to watch and hastily admonished, "You silly girl, get down." Qin Yin'er pouted, "No, I won't. I miss Brother Hao so much." I refused to get down. Not only did she refuse to budge, but she also clung to Nan Gonghao's neck like a koala, hanging onto him. Nan Gonghao felt helpless, but did not insist on removing Qin Yin'er, stating, "This does not hinder our conversation. Please, if you have matters to discuss, feel free to proceed." The elders of the Ying sect felt their eyelids twitching. They longed to rush forward and kick Nan Gonghao. While he might not care, they certainly did. The Ying sect disciples were aloof and pure, never having engaged in such intimate contact with a man. Yet now, with Qin Yin'er perched on his lap like a concubine, what would others think of the Ying sect? For those aware of Qin Yin'er's status as his fiancée, it might be somewhat acceptable. However, those unaware would likely presume that the Ying sect disciples were wanton. The red-haired elder, known for her explosive temper, rose in fury and shouted, in public, "Such a lack of decorum! Separate at once!" A crimson light erupted from her, transforming into a whip-like strike aimed at pulling Qin Yin'er away. A black hole materialized beside Nangong Hao, attempting to devour the Crimson Whip. Yet, unexpectedly, the Crimson Whip suppressed the void, forcefully piercing through the black hole. The red-haired elder sneered. I know you have comprehended the Tao of space, but so what? She was a supreme Saint King, her strength and realm surpassing that of Nangong Hao. Previously, Wei Xingping seemed like an ant to her. Now, she had not even exerted her full strength. Yet her mere intent to retrieve Qin Yin'er was sufficient to dominate the void. Nangong Hao, however, showed no fear. The surrounding space rapidly compressed. It was a peculiar phenomenon. The space that once spanned hundreds of feet was forcibly compressed to a mere inch. Yet the internal capacity remained unchanged. In other words, it was akin to a barrel that could hold 10 tons of water being compressed into a palm-sized cup, yet still containing 10 tons of water. The proportions simply shrank. Sumi conceals the mustard seed. The red-haired elder was utterly astonished. The other strong figures of the Ying sect were equally shaken. This was a pinnacle spatial divine ability. Sumi referred to the legendary Sumi Mountain, larger than the Guanyuan heavenly domain. The mustard seed was something even smaller than a sesame seed. To conceal the vast Sumi Mountain within a mustard seed illustrated the might of this divine ability. At this moment, Nangong Hao was doing just that, compressing space. It appeared minuscule, yet was, in reality, vast. The Crimson Whip, though seemingly close to Nangong Hao, was in fact quite distant. No matter how fiercely it pursued Qin Yin'er, it could never catch up, gradually expending its energy along the extended path. Nangong Hao dismissed the power of the whip and restored the space to normal, casually stating, "Has the test been passed?" The red-haired elder appeared eager to take action again, yet the sect master calmly interjected, "Young Master Nangong, you have misunderstood. This is not a test. It is merely that your public embrace of my Ying sect disciple is quite inappropriate, and their impulsive actions were indeed a bit uncalled for. Why not consider this a draw and leave it at that?" Nangong Hao nodded slightly. "Very well, then let us discuss why you invited me here. Are you aware that you have ranked first on the ancient sage list?" The sect master stated nonchalantly. The multitude of elders beside him immediately turned their gazes towards Nangong Hao, eager to discern his reaction. Yet, Nangong Hao merely displayed a look of realization. Pondering the fierce battles he had sensed in the ether and understanding it was merely a contest for ranking on the Huanggu Shenrenbang. The conflict over names ignited the strength of the formidable, a sentiment easily grasped by the gathered powerhouses. However, the leader of the Yingnu sect continued, stating that the Huanggu Shenrenbang had shattered due to the clash of the four of them and would no longer be updated. Strictly speaking, he was now the last of the first-rate talents. The Yingnu sect members, hearing this revelation for the first time, were taken aback. The sisters, Qin Shuiyao and Qin Yin'er, experienced a whirlwind of surprise and joy. They had anticipated that Nangong Hao's arrival in Zhozhou could yield significant news. But they had not expected such a momentous announcement, that he had monopolized the top position on the Huanggu Shenrenbang. Nangong Hao was equally astonished, questioning the worthiness of the Huanggu Shenrenbang. The crowd fell silent, incredulous, some even contemplating physical reprisal. The existence of the Huanggu Shenrenbang had persisted for ages, and it crumbled due to their actions. Yet he, instead of expressing sorrow, deemed it inferior? The sect leader, clearly caught off guard by his response, remained speechless for a moment. Soon, she composed herself, remarking that she intended to convey that Qin Shuiyao and her sister were betrothed to him, a personal matter. However, as they were now disciples of the Yingnu sect, should he wish to marry them, his intent would require her consent. Upon hearing the sect leader's words, Nangong Hao furrowed his brow slightly, feeling a sense of dissatisfaction. His engagement with Qin Shuiyao had been arranged since childhood. Why should he seek the Yingnu sect's approval? The sect leader, noticing his discontent, replied, "We are not attempting to impose upon you. But since your fiancée has joined our sect, she must abide by our rules, correct?" Nangong Hao replied calmly, "I am not one to be unreasonable, and I acknowledge the nurturing you have provided to the sisters. Thus, I will not compel them to violate sect regulations." The sect leader was pleased with this attitude and continued, "Indeed, you demonstrate a level of understanding. Therefore, let's speak plainly. You carry the ancient mark, destined to face relentless pursuits unless you ascend to the level of a quasi-emperor or even an emperor. However, you are undoubtedly aware of the unique characteristics of your Tianqin Sheni. I do not concern myself with your confidence in breaking the locking heaven chains. But until you achieve that, you cannot maintain a relationship with the Shuiyao sisters. Can you comply?" Upon hearing this, Qin Shuyao's expression shifted dramatically, while Qin Yin'er shouted angrily, "Sect leader, how can you say this? If you prevent me from being with Brother Hao, I shall withdraw." Suddenly, an overwhelming pressure cascaded downwards, directly subduing Qin Yin'er. She felt as though she were a mere piece of wood, immobilized, unable to speak, her anxiety palpable. Qin Shuyao, however, remained composed, gazing earnestly at Nangong Hao. "Nangong, what do you intend?" Should Nangong Hao express a desire to take her away, Qin Shuyao was certain she would not hesitate for a moment, even if it meant opposing the Yingnu sect and the world. Such was her character, proud and fervently loving. The other elders fixated on Nangong Hao, curious about his decision, and even Luo Jiushi appeared anxious, aware that Nangong Hao could potentially guide the two sisters. If he insisted on taking them, the Yingnu sect would seemingly have no recourse but to employ extraordinary measures to retain them. However, should they resort to such tactics, the sisters would likely harbor deep resentment towards the Yingnu sect. Thus, all eyes were on Nangong Hao, awaiting his response. Nangong Hao lowered his head in contemplation, deliberating whether it would be more beneficial for the sisters to remain here or accompany him in order to accelerate their growth in strength. With this in mind, he refrained from providing an immediate answer and posed a question: "What resources can your Yingnu sect allocate to cultivate the two of them?" Upon hearing this, the elders of the Yingnu sect were taken aback. Particularly, Lu Qinghui chastised, "Are you proposing a bargain? If we do not nurture them, do you truly intend to take them away?" Nangong Hao retorted with a cold smile, "If you choose not to cultivate them, what is wrong with my taking them?" "Impudence. This is the Yingnu sect. How can you act with such audacity?" Lu Qinghui seethed. Yet, there was a glimmer of mockery and delight in her eyes, for she had perceived Nangong Hao's arrogance and intended to provoke him. As expected, he fell into her trap and uttered words that incited anger amongst the elders. Within the discussion hall, the elders' tempers flared, their gazes filled with indignation directed at Nangong Hao. He, however, remained unfazed by their wrath, sitting calmly as he awaited a reply. Soon, the sect leader raised her hand to quell the tumultuous inquiries, stating, "You would determine whether to adhere to sect regulations, and even whether to retain them based on the extent of my cultivation efforts for them?" "Indeed," Nangong Hao affirmed without hesitation. "Very well. Our sect will hold a martial competition soon, and the Shuyao sisters must participate. Should they secure a place among the top 3, they shall receive full support in their cultivation," the sect leader promised without hesitation. The surrounding elders gasped in disbelief, particularly Lu Qinghui, who nearly exploded with rage. She had not anticipated that her words would not only fail to deter, but would lead the sect leader to acquiesce to Nangong Hao's demands. Unwilling to relent, Lu Qinghui urgently protested, "Sect leader, you cannot. Who knows if there's a conspiracy lurking within?" Other elders echoed their disapproval, expressing their concerns. The sisters' talent was indeed formidable, a fact acknowledged by many in the sect. Previously, they had not opposed the sisters much, but upon discovering their connection to Nangong Hao and witnessing their obedience to him, their displeasure had grown. What if these sisters were truly nurtured and secretly leaked sect resources to Nangong Hao? Would he not become a parasite within the Yingnu sect? Who could endure such a fate? Nangong Hao observed the elders as they vociferously opposed him, some even resorting to personal attacks, and could not help but scoff. "Sect leader, your authority seems rather lacking." The sect leader's chilling aura swept through the hall, silencing all in an instant. "In the presence of juniors, you exhibit such disgraceful behavior. Do you truly believe the Yingnu sect is not already embarrassed enough?" She reprimanded coldly. The elders, taken aback, averted their eyes, fearful of speaking further. Even Lu Qinghui, the most vocal opponent, chose to remain silent. Once she had quelled the uproar among the elders, the sect leader resumed her questioning of Nangong Hao. "Do you believe these sisters can break into the top 3? Keep in mind, they will not only be competing against our sect's disciples, but also outsiders." "No problem," Nangong Hao affirmed with a nod. If anyone else were in his position, cultivating the two sisters would undoubtedly prove challenging. However, with the presence of the Huan Dongqing Lian, what was there to fear? After receiving his response, the sect leader stated, "For now, you may stay in the Yingnu sect as a guest, and you shall depart once the competition concludes." "No, I need to procure some items," Nangong Hao replied, shaking his head. "What items?" the sect leader inquired, her tone still relatively cordial. "What I seek is not available within your sect, but elsewhere," he smiled enigmatically. "Where?" the Yingnu sect leader asked, intrigued. "In the Yin clan, the Qing Shi clan, the Lei Jiaoxi, and the Kuei Mu clan." He enumerated a dozen first-rate powers. These were all factions that had previously invaded the Donghuang. The elders of the Yingnu sect exchanged glances, their eyelids twitching, although they were unaware of Nangonghao's intentions regarding these factions. The tone of his voice suggested that it was certainly not for benevolent purposes. Qin Shuyao's heart trembled slightly, and she hurriedly said, "Nangong, do not be anxious. Once Yen'er and I have elevated our cultivation, we will accompany you in seeking vengeance." The numerous elders present frowned in unison. Although the supreme power was not afraid of first-rate forces, it would not provoke so many at once. Moreover, many of these first-rate powers were vassals of other supreme forces. Listening to Qin Shuyao's words, it seemed that the girl intended to create trouble after becoming stronger. Wasn't this inviting trouble for the Yingnu zone? Nangonghao did not acquiesce to Qin Shuyao's request and replied, "I am not going for revenge. I merely intend to eradicate their strongholds in Zhongzhou." The surrounding individuals were left dumbfounded. Was this not revenge? What then constituted revenge? Would he uproot these first-rate forces? To be fair, upon further reflection, the elders realized that Nangonghao could indeed accomplish such a feat. He was merely eliminating strongholds, which could at most be considered collecting interest rather than revenge. Chapter 183. United in heart. Their strength is unyielding. Nangonghao expressed his intention to eliminate the strongholds of these first-rate forces. The leader of the Yingnu zone made no effort to retain him, and the other elders remained silent, eagerly wishing for Nangonghao to depart. As Nangonghao left the Yingnu zone, Qin Shuyao and Qin Yen'er accompanied him to bid farewell. Yin Xiaoqiao also sought a way to tag along under the pretense of an excuse. Outside the mountain gate of Yingnu zone, Nangonghao stood on the steps and said calmly, "You may return. When I come back, I shall bring you a wonderful gift. Would you plan to go first?" Qin Shuyao asked gravely. Tianyong City, Nangonghao replied with a faint smile. Yin Xiaoqiao was astonished. That place has been annihilated. What purpose do you have in going there? Of course, I intend to give certain individuals a bit of time to find trouble with me, Nangonghao remarked, casting a glance into the distant void before withdrawing his gaze. Qin Yen'er and Yin Xiaoqiao were both perplexed. However, Qin Shuyao, being astute, seemed to grasp the situation. "Nangong, you may go. I will handle matters here for you." Nangonghao gently ruffled Qin Shuyao's hair, saying, "With you as my wise assistant, I feel immensely at ease." Qin Shuyao's face flushed, and she shot a charming glare at Nangonghao. Beside them, Qin Yen'er, feeling displeased, quickly interjected, "What about me? I can assist Brother Hao too." Nangonghao chuckled as he pinched Qin Yen'er's cheek, saying, "Yen'er is also a wise assistant, the kind that warms the bed." Qin Yen'er giggled and then leaped into Nangonghao's embrace, quickly pecking him on the cheek before shyly burying her face in his chest. Yin Xiaoqiao watched, filled with envy. She too wished to be as intimate with Nangonghao. Qin Shuyao harbored similar thoughts, but found herself somewhat shy and reserved. She believed that Nangonghao should court her before she could allow herself to be so close, and only when they were alone. It was precisely due to her distance from Nangonghao that she noticed Yin Xiaoqiao gazing at him with infatuation, leaving her speechless. Indeed, Nangonghao could not become too close to any woman. Otherwise, he would surely make them fall for him. Yin Xiaoqiao had previously looked down on Nangonghao, even considering him a scoundrel and a swindler. Yet, unexpectedly, she had begun to develop feelings for him. Qin Yen'er remained oblivious to Yin Xiaoqiao's unusual behavior, and, after a moment of intimacy with Nangonghao, finally let him depart. Once Nangonghao was gone, the three women stood at the mountain gate like statues, watching his figure vanish completely before turning away. "Sister Xiaoqiao, Yen'er, you should return to Qianling Mountain. I need to make a trip to Haining Peak," Qin Shuyao said indifferently. "Haining Peak? Isn't that where Elder Lu Qingwei resides? What do you intend to do there?" Yin Xiaoqiao inquired, puzzled. Qin Yen'er too found it strange. "Sister, are you planning to confront Elder Lu?" "Do not concern yourselves. I will not act recklessly," Qin Shuyao replied as she soared into the sky. Yin Xiaoqiao and Qin Yen'er exchanged glances, still feeling uneasy, and followed her at a distance. Qin Shuyao said nothing further and gracefully arrived at the foot of Haining Peak, where she remained still, standing there for about the span of a tea time. She was on the verge of being questioned by Yin Xiaoqiao and Qin Yen'er when she suddenly made her move. She ascended the mountain and intercepted a group of disciples returning from their training at Haining Peak. Given the long-standing animosity between Qianling Mountain and Haining Peak, conflicts between their disciples were not uncommon. Additionally, due to Qin Shuyao's astonishing beauty, she had often been targeted by the disciples of Haining Peak. Upon seeing her, the disciples were taken aback. One elder sister from Haining Peak, after recovering from her surprise, darkened her expression and scolded, "What brings the people of Qianling Mountain here? Quickly leave. You are not welcome." "Apologies, elder sister. We shall take our leave." Yin Xiaoqiao quickly stepped forward to apologize. She had been following Qin Shuiyao and had wanted to stop her upon reaching the mountain. Now, seeing a potential conflict arise, she instinctively stepped in to defuse the situation. The Yingnu Zong forbade internal disciples from engaging in private duels. Any issues must be resolved in the martial arena overseen by elders. Such provocations could lead to severe consequences for Qin Shuiyao, even resulting in her death, or at the very least, punishment in the punishment hall. However, Qin Shuiyao merely waved her hand, pushing Yin Xiaoqiao aside, and with the divine crown of the Taiyin goddess hovering above her head, she enveloped herself in the refined Taiyin energy. Qin Shuiyao raised her delicate hand high and swung it down fiercely. The void trembled as if a Taiyin star had emerged, unleashing an endless torrent of Taiyin sword energy that violently descended upon the disciples below. The disciples of Haining Peak, caught completely off guard by Qin Shuiyao's ruthless attack, were engulfed in terror. "Qin Shuiyao, are you seeking death? How dare you strike at Haining Peak? It's so cold. It's the power of Taiyin. This woman has gone mad. Everyone run. Help! Elder sister! Master! Accompanied by a chorus of piercing screams. The disciples of Haining Peak suffered severe injuries. Some were even pierced through by the Taiyin sword energy, blood spurting forth as they fell to the ground, gravely wounded. Yin Xiaoqiao was left dumbfounded at this sight. Even Qin Yin'er was stunned. What was happening? Was it possible that sister was angry with elder Lu Qinghui for not permitting them to partake in the competition and, in a fit of rage, intended to massacre the disciples of Haining Peak? Qin Yin'er speculated, but quickly dismissed the thought. Her sister was typically mature and composed. Her actions must surely have a different intention. At that moment, the so-called composed Qin Xiao hovered in the air, the Taiyin star above her head, unleashing boundless Taiyin sword energy to crush the disciples of Haining Peak. While she maintained control, ensuring that no one was killed, numerous disciples were still injured and sprawled on the ground, wailing in agony. The disciples of Haining Peak were filled with dread, although they occasionally clashed with Qianling Mountain. It was never on such a large scale, and they would never attack each other's peaks directly. They could not comprehend what had come over Qin Shuiyao today. Typically, she would not react so intensely to their bullying. However, Haining Peak was not without its elite disciples, and they quickly organized a counteroffensive. A purple light surged into the sky, roaring as it charged toward Qin Shuiyao. Just as she was about to gather her strength to defend, she saw several figures that mirrored her own appearing around her. These figures were indistinguishable from Qin Shuiyao, and even the Taiyin stars above their heads multiplied into dozens. This sight filled the elder sister from Haining Peak with shock and fury, yet she dared not recklessly charge in and could only retreat. Qin Shuiyao understood that this was the result of her sister's dreamlike order. The two sisters joined forces and surged toward the summit of Haining Peak. Yin Xiaoqiao chose not to intervene, realizing the situation was amiss, and hurried to Qianling Mountain to summon her master. However, her call was unnecessary, as the cries for help attracted the elders from nearby peaks. Among them were those allied with Haining Peak and others with ties to Qianling Mountain. All the elders were filled with alarm and quickly intervened to stop the chaos. The venerable Saint King, Wang Chonglao, effortlessly subdued the sisters Qin Shuiyao. However, before being taken to the punishment hall, Qin Shuiyao loudly questioned from the heights, "Elder Lu Qinghui, you have just emerged from the council hall. Surely you would not retreat for cultivation so swiftly. I am slaughtering disciples atop your peak, and yet you do not intervene. Could it be that you are absent?" The crowd was filled with uncertainty, puzzled by Qin Shuiao's pointed remarks. Without granting her further opportunity for explanation, she was swiftly dispatched to the punishment hall for interrogation. Meanwhile, Nangong Hao appeared in Tianyong City, now transformed entirely into a wasteland. It is worth noting that Tianyong City was a bastion of formidable power. Although merely a first-rate force in Zhongzhou, it could effortlessly suppress the entire Dongwang domain. Yet now, this first-rate power, which had existed for countless ages, was effortlessly obliterated by the Yingnu sect, leaving not even a spark behind. The might of the Yingnu sect was evident in the annihilation of Tianyong City. Nevertheless, Nangong Hao was convinced that the Yingnu sect had not exerted its full strength. In fact, he surmised that barely half of their power had been employed. Previously, when he encountered the sect master, he felt as though he were facing an endless ocean, devoid of any sense of its depths. Such power was not something an ordinary Saint King could possess. Yet, Nan Gonghao felt no fear. He believed that he would one day surpass the sect master of the Yingnu sect, and that day would not be far off. With a focused mind, Nan Gonghao surveyed the desolate Tianyong city. The vast city had been reduced to ruins, and many were scouring the area in search of treasures. Disguised by his ancient mark, Nan Gonghao's arrival went unnoticed. However, his pretense was not for the purpose of treasure hunting. His primary objective was to sign in. The previous sign-in location provided by the system was Tianyong Tomb. Strangely, the map he had purchased earlier did not indicate the location of Tianyong Tomb. While traveling with Yin Xiaoqiao to the Yingnu sect, he had inquired about the tomb's whereabouts, only to be informed that Tianyong Tomb was the resting place of the formidable beings of Tianyong City, a site of utmost importance and heavily guarded by at least a dozen Saint Kings, with the imperial artifact itself resting within. To enter, one would need to destroy Tianyong City, which was now in ruins, having been laid waste. Entering Tianyong City was now exceedingly simple for Nan Gonghao. After much inquiry, he finally arrived at a location that resembled Tianyong Tomb. As the area had become flat ground, distinguishing one spot from another was nearly impossible. He could only approximate its position. Knowing that the system sign-in usually required reaching a core area, he began to wander, searching for this central location. Others, like him, were also roaming about in search of opportunities. Suddenly, Nan Gonghao noticed a glimmer in the distance. Hastening towards it, he reached down to retrieve the object. However, a bird's claw landed atop it with a thud. Frowning, Nan Gonghao looked up to see a massive eagle, over a person's height, its brown feathers gleaming like steel blades, exuding an intimidating aura. The eagle fixed its gaze upon Nan Gonghao, opening its sharp beak to utter a single word, "Scram." Nan Gonghao merely appraised the eagle, his expression growing increasingly frigid. Wuzue Jiao? This was a race that had once invaded the Dongwang domain and was on his list of targets. He could hardly believe it had come to him uninvited. Yet, the eagle, upon hearing his words, regarded him with disdain, refusing to speak, evidently deeming him unworthy of conversation. Lacking patience, Nan Gonghao launched a divine pattern towards the eagle. Infuriated by Nan Gonghao's defiance and his attempt to attack, the eagle felt an overwhelming sense of threat and panic, its feathers standing on end as it hastily retreated. Yet, no matter how swiftly it fled, it could not escape the divine pattern, which swiftly caught up to it. Upon contact, the pattern began to voraciously absorb the eagle's power. "No, you cannot kill me. I am of the Wuzue Jiao clan. Do you wish to be pursued to the ends of the earth?" The eagle cried in terror. Nan Gonghao coldly regarded the creature, but ultimately chose to show restraint. The eagle, on the brink of being drained, felt the divine pattern's force wane, allowing it to breathe a sigh of relief. Nevertheless, being a bird, it was somewhat forgetful despite its sentience. It coldly glared at Nan Gonghao, declaring, "It seems you are aware of the Wuzue Jiao clan's power. If you wish to live, offer me sufficient treasures to compensate for my strength." Seeing the eagle not only unafraid, but also attempting to extort compensation, Nan Gonghao scoffed, "You want compensation? Very well, let us go to your clan's stronghold." The eagle, surprised by Nan Gonghao's willingness, hesitated. "You wish to accompany me back?" Nan Gonghao remained silent as he approached and picked up the object that had caught both their eyes. It was a small green crystal, pulsating with immense power. Could this be a fragment of an imperial artifact? Nan Gonghao surmised it was likely a shard from the shattered imperial artifact of Tianyong City. He wondered if the sacred spirit would require it. Summoning the Yu Huang seal, he inquired, "Can it be absorbed?" The sacred spirit within the Yu Huang seal extended a faint consciousness, examining the green crystal before expressing excitement. Clearly, it was something it needed. Nan Gonghao promptly handed the crystal over to the Yu Huang seal, and then turned to leave, disregarding the Wuzue Jiao behind him. The eagle, perplexed by Nan Gonghao's actions, attempted to rise, only to be suddenly overwhelmed by a surge of power pressing down upon it. Boom! The Wuzue Jiao found itself pinned to the ground, unable to move. It realized that Nan Gonghao had no intention of letting it go. The claim of accompanying it back to its clan was likely a ruse for revenge against its stronghold. This audacious scoundrel was utterly arrogant. Knowing full well that the Wuzue Jiao clan was a first-rate power, he still dared to utter such threats. The eagle resolved to plot its revenge against Nan Gonghao. Continuing to wander near Tianyong Tomb, Nan Gonghao soon arrived at the edge of a deep pit, and a spark of inspiration struck him. Tombs are generally located underground. Although this site had been destroyed by the Yingnu sect, the underground tomb might still be intact. With that thought, Nan Gonghao leaped into the pit. Indeed, as soon as he descended, the voice of the system echoed in his ears. Congratulations, host. You have successfully signed in and received the reward. Path of Alchemy. The sign-in location has refreshed. Please sign in at Jixia Academy. Nan Gonghao smiled at the unexpected reward of alchemy. Although he possessed the ability to absorb, rendering pills unnecessary, being able to craft them could still benefit those around him. Quite promising indeed. However, this sign-in was to Jixia Academy? Nan Gonghao suddenly recalled that he still possessed a Chung Tianling, originally belonging to the young lord of Tianyong City, which was now his. He pondered whether it could be of any use. As he thought this, he had already approached the Wu Zue Diao. He was not in the mood to search for relics in Tianyong City. It would be far more advantageous to seize resources from these first-rate forces. Chapter 185. The Wu Zue Diao Stronghold. A single punch to vanquish the Saint King upon completing a sign-in. Nan Gonghao soared out of the pit and returned to the side of the Wu Zue Diao. The creature lay on the ground, and upon seeing Nan Gonghao return, it coldly proposed, "Shall we make a deal?" "Speak." Nan Gonghao replied indifferently. "I can overlook your injury to me, and you may take that item with you. Let this matter rest, and we shall not interfere with one another in the future. What do you say?" The Wu Zue Diao clearly wished to concede. Having contemplated that Nan Gonghao was no ordinary individual and did not wish to engage in direct conflict, Nan Gonghao smiled. "I struck you, and you choose not to hold a grudge. That is indeed generous. I accept your offer." The Wu Zue Diao fixed its gaze on Nan Gonghao, confirming that he was not mocking it but genuinely agreeing, which brought it a sense of relief. However, Nan Gonghao continued, "Take me to your stronghold." The Wu Zue Diao's expression stiffened, followed by a flash of anger. "Do we not agree to let this matter go? You harm me, and I do not retaliate. But I will not let your intrusion into my Dong Huang territory go unpunished." Nan Gonghao replied calmly, You're the Wu Zue Diao." Without providing further explanation, Nan Gonghao stepped onto its chest, speaking in a low voice, "Take me there, and you may yet have a chance to save yourself. If you do not, you will perish here." The Wu Zue Diao, sensing the fierce killing intent radiating from Nan Gonghao, felt a surge of fear but dared not protest. It flapped its wings and soared into the sky, heading towards its clan's stronghold. The lair of the Wu Zue Diao clan was situated far away. Nevertheless, all first-rate forces maintained numerous strongholds scattered throughout the central continent to search for resources. The Wu Zue Diao led Nan Gonghao to one of its strongholds, which was nestled within a vast primordial forest, where towering trees shot up towards the heavens, some reaching heights of several hundred zhang, resembling mountains. Within this jungle resided countless wild beasts, spirit beasts, and fierce birds. The ominous energy coalesced into a white mist, enveloping the forest, rendering it a scene reminiscent of a magnificent celestial palace. However, anyone below the sovereign level who dared to enter would be instantly poisoned to death. Even for those at the saint level, entry was no easy feat. This immense forest covered over 100,000 mu, serving as a stronghold for the Wu Zue Diao clan, and was merely a branch location. The Wu Zue Diao clan possessed at least a dozen such locations. This illustrates the terrifying nature of first-rate forces. With an expression of cold indifference and mockery, the Wu Zue Diao remarked, "I do not know who you are, but if you seek revenge, you shall find it impossible. This is merely a branch of my clan, where a Saint King presides alongside several other saints and numerous sovereigns. As for the other clan members, they are countless. What do you possess to contend against my clan?" Nan Gonghao surveyed the area below and indifferently tossed the Wu Zue Diao in the air, declaring, "Wu Zue Diao clan, come forth and meet your demise." This voice echoed like rolling thunder, resonating throughout the primordial forest. The Wu Zue Diao, just cast into the air, had not even had the chance to display its horror before being obliterated into a mist of blood by the shockwave. The Yu Huang Yin emerged, greedily devouring the essence of flesh and blood. The myriad beings dwelling within the primordial forest were also stirred. The Wu Zue Diao Saint King, responsible for guarding this area, rushed out in shock, exclaiming, "Who dares to disturb the Wu Zue Diao clan? I have come from Dong Huang to collect a debt." Nan Gonghao did not announce his name, not out of fear, but because the Wu Zue Diao owed the lives of many from the entire Dong Huang realm. Thus, he sought repayment in the name of Dong Huang. Upon hearing this, the Wu Zue Diao Saint King let out a sigh of relief, only to be replaced by disdain. "I thought you were a successor from a formidable power. A mere person from Dong Huang dares to be so audacious?" Suddenly, several other Wu Zue Diao saints surged forth, surrounding Nan Gonghao. You think you can provoke our Saint King? How dare you come seeking trouble with our clan? We will wash away this humiliation with your blood. Enough talk. Do not let outsiders see this as a joke. I will kill him. A Wu Zui Diao Saint, towering over 2 meters, roared with rage, intent on charging at Nangonghao. Nangongshao's earlier bellow had attracted the attention of many passing powerhouses. The Wu Zui Jiao clan had long dominated this area, committing countless misdeeds and accumulating many enemies. However, their clan was immensely powerful, being of ancient bloodlines, which had allowed them to remain unchallenged until now. Now that someone had dared to provoke them, whether they were foes of the Wu Zui Jiao or mere onlookers, they rushed to witness the spectacle. Upon seeing that Nangonghao was alone, they felt a pang of disappointment, especially those who had seen the Wu Zui Jiao charging. They shook their heads. The outcome was already determined. This intruder would surely perish. The attacking Wu Zui Jiao Saint was at the 7-star Saint level, wielding a divine ability known as the Tear Sky Wave, capable of rending the heavens with its sound waves. The Wu Zui Jiao Saint let out a furious cry, unleashing its attack on Nangonghao, intent on crushing him. Nangonghao, without even glancing, stepped forward, charging towards the Saint King of the Wu Zui Jiao. You should know that these wretches are no match for me. Boom! Boom! Nangonghao unleashed a torrent of violent power, directly annihilating 4 saints, including the one that had intended to use sound waves to kill him. It was utterly crushed, reduced to nothingness. The onlookers were instantly engulfed in terror. This challenger appeared to be merely a youth. How could he possess such horrifying strength? The Wu Zui Jiao Saint King's pupils constricted, and with wings unfurled, it rapidly retreated. Who on earth are you? Such a powerhouse should not exist in Donghuang. Nangonghao executed a spatial shift, instantly appearing behind the Wu Zui Jiao Saint King. Were you? The Wu Zui Jiao Saint King screamed in terror. It had no intention of resisting, only wishing to flee quickly. Yet, the Wu Zui Jiao clan's pride, the speed of the world, became a farce before Nangonghao. Boom! A gravitational force descended. The Wu Zui Jiao Saint King felt the pressure and spewed out a mouthful of blood. How is this possible? How can a 5-star saint exert such immense power? The surrounding onlookers gasped in shock. Just moments ago, they had looked down on Nangonghao, thinking him foolish to provoke a first-rate force's stronghold. But now, it seemed he possessed the qualifications. Remember, the one who will kill you hails from Donghuang, Nangonghao coldly declared, suddenly appearing above the Wu Zui Jiao Saint King, delivering a punch. This blow carried boundless power. Bang! The Wu Zui Jiao Saint King's skull was shattered, blood spraying forth. The spectators fell into a stupor. They had anticipated Nangonghao's victory, but never expected it to come so effortlessly. A 5-star saint versus a Saint King, and within mere breaths, the Saint King was vanquished by a single punch? Who would believe such a tale if told? Everyone stared in astonishment at Nangonghao, speculating on his identity. Chapter 186. The collapse of the Lei Jiaoshi stronghold surrounded Nangonghao, paid no heed to the bewildered spectators. He coldly fixed his gaze upon the primordial forest below, raising his hand to establish a gravitational space. Fall. A low hum reverberated through the air. A dreadful pressure emanated from above. Numerous onlookers, all sovereigns and saints, trembled in fear, gazing up at the void. They sensed that a great calamity was about to descend. In the next moment, countless small red dots appeared in the sky. As the dots grew larger, many beings realized they were meteors. A meteor shower was upon them. Nangonghao unexpectedly unleashed a fragment of the ancient celestial stars, intending to obliterate the territory of the Wu Zui Jiao. The multitude of onlookers was utterly astonished, for such an extraordinary display was beyond their comprehension. Meanwhile, the myriad beings within the Wu Zui Jiao stronghold sensed this overwhelming terror and screamed as they fled the forest. Nangonghao did not impede their escape, recognizing that among them were the innocent. His target was solely the ruling elite of the Wu Zui Jiao clan. Naturally, he also aimed to demolish their stronghold. Countless meteors fell, crashing into the primordial forest, unleashing thunderous roars and igniting an inferno that incinerated both the trees and the toxic miasma, reducing this ancient wilderness, which had endured for countless ages, to mere flatland. The stronghold of the Wu Zui Jiao clan lay exposed before all. Although reduced to ruins, remnants of valuable treasures could still be discerned. With a sweep of his divine consciousness, Nangonghao discovered a treasure vault. its protective formations already on the brink of collapse from the meteoric impacts. With a casual strike, he shattered the formations and retrieved all the treasures within. As for the scattered remnants, he paid them no heed. They belong to you now. Spread the word of today's events, Man Gonghao stated nonchalantly. The multitude of onlookers displayed expressions of exhilaration, eagerly nodding in agreement. Even without his prompting, they would have eagerly spread the news, especially now that there were treasures to be gained. Utilizing his spatial abilities, Man Gonghao swiftly departed the scene, following the mapped route to seek out the nearest hostile stronghold, that of the Lei Jiao Shi clan. This clan was notorious for their nefarious deeds in the eastern wilderness, having slaughtered countless beings and even participated in the ambush against the Mongong family. Many members of the Mongong clan had perished at their hands, losing a significant amount of resources in the process. Arriving rapidly at the Lei Jiao Shi stronghold, he found himself amidst a desolate mountain range, stretching for miles with towering peaks that seemed to pierce the heavens. These mountains were barren, devoid of any vegetation, with many areas shrouded in darkness. These were the Lei Ji Shi, rare stones struck by lightning, valued for their ability to imbue crafted items with electrical properties. Even the powerful Nangong family had possessed only a few hundred of these stones. Yet, the Lei Jiao Shi clan boasted several mountains filled with them. Indeed, they were affluent. However, such wealth did not deter them from attacking the Mongong family. How shameless. As Man Gonghao approached the mountains, he suddenly felt the air crackling with electricity. Golden arcs of lightning crackled around him, inflicting minimal harm while simultaneously refining his physique. Prolonged exposure to this environment would strengthen his body to an astonishing degree, enhancing his mastery over the path of thunder. It was indeed a treasure trove for a cultivator of lightning attributes. With an icy demeanor, Man Gonghao gazed towards the highest peak, likely the main summit of the Lei Jiao Shi clan. A guest has arrived. Will you not offer a welcome? His voice resonated clearly, reaching the ears of the Lei Jiao Shi clan. However, this clan was notoriously xenophobic, and not only were there no other beings within their territory, but for 1,000 miles around, they were alone. His words incited fury among the Lei Jiao Shi. They had never anticipated that someone would dare to provoke them. Who dares? A deep voice emanated from the summit. From the eastern wilderness, I come for vengeance. Man Gonghao retorted coldly. This declaration momentarily silenced the peak. Then, the Lei Jiao Shi erupted in raucous laughter, filled with mockery, derision, and disdain. One of them taunted, the eastern wilderness dares to seek revenge? Such audacity. How about we give you a choice of opponents? Will you face a Wang Ho or a Huang Zhe? The Lei Jiao Shi could perceive Man Gonghao's cultivation level, 5-star saint. Yet, they intended to send out a Wang Ho and a Huang Zhe to confront him, a clear indication of their scorn. Man Gonghao remained unfazed by their ridicule, adopting a stance akin to drawing a bow, slowly retracting his fist. Simultaneously, a vast force materialized behind him, forming a silhouette. The Shindi, the creator god. The phantom raised its fist, as if to cleave the heavens and earth, exuding an aura of immense power. The mocking laughter atop the thunderous mountain came to an abrupt halt, replaced by palpable fear. Who are you? The Saint King of the Lei Jiao Shi emerged. Though only one, he was undeniably formidable. The air crackled with terrifying arcs of electricity, the manifestation of the power of the path of thunder. Yet, sensing it was insufficient, he bellowed to those behind him, "Aid me." The other Lei Jiao Shi trembled with trepidation, but had long since abandoned any underestimation, channeling their strength to support their Saint King. As all members of the Lei Jiao Shi cultivated the path of thunder, their powers could be mutually reinforced. At that moment, the Saint King erupted with even more brilliant lightning, every movement accompanied by the sound of thunder. Heavenly thunder. The Lei Jiao Shi Saint King roared. In an instant, dark clouds rolled across the sky, altering the weather for miles around. The next moment, golden lightning surged within the clouds, emanating a world-destroying aura. At the behest of the Lei Jiao Shi Saint King, a bolt of lightning, as thick as a small mountain, descended violently towards Man Gonghao. Meanwhile, Man Gonghao's fist had accumulated tremendous power and was unleashed with ferocity. Was the Lei Jiao Shi strong? Indeed. Was the Saint King powerful? Very much so. Was the path of thunder formidable? Absolutely. At this moment, the Lei Jiao Shi devoted all their strength to their Saint King, unleashing the path of thunder, and summoning a heavenly thunder capable of flattening vast landscapes. Such was the might of the strongest among the strong. Yet, it remained woefully inadequate. At this juncture, It seemed as though only Nangunhao's fist existed in the universe. With a single strike, the heavens and earth quaked. The sun and moon shatter, the mountains weep. The resounding cacophony echoed as the thunderous mountain was shattered. As for the Lei Jiaoshi, when that fist descended, even the Saint King had not the time to emit a sound before being obliterated, let alone the ordinary members of the clan. Nangunhao's fist obliterated the Lei Ji Shi mountain range, consuming considerable energy. He suspended in the void, slightly breathless. At that moment, numerous figures appeared around him, powerful beings drawn by the commotion. Saints and even Saint Kings observed with flickering expressions, their intentions unclear. Chapter 187. The Flame Clan Stronghold. An ambush prepared in advance. Nangunghao paid no mind to the onlookers. The Yu Huang seal swept across, joyfully devouring the shattered remnants of flesh and energy. Although much had dissipated, it still managed to absorb a satisfying amount. A surge of chaotic azure lotus power coursed through Nangunghao, consuming the dispersed forces of the Grand Tao and laws. Boom! Thunder erupted from Nangunghao, accompanied by a radiant light of enlightenment. He began to forcibly comprehend the path of thunder. Nearby, a fiery red bird stared intently at its gaze mocking, which great power has nurtured this young prodigy. Clearly spoiled by his family, daring to comprehend publicly, as if everyone is as indulgent as his parents. This crimson bird was a saint, albeit a 3-star one, yet possessed exceptional talent. Several other saints nearby were swayed by its words, drawing closer with ill intentions. Others began to test the waters, a lizard flicking its tongue, probing around Nangunghao, wary of any formations or defensive treasures. The other saints also exuded hostility, seeking to ascertain whether there would be any retaliation. But there was none. Nothing at all. Nangunghao continued to comprehend the Grand Tao in the void, utterly unguarded, lacking any form of protection. In an instant, many sages found it somewhat amusing. This lad is truly foolish. The number of ill-intentioned sages increased, with at least a dozen encircling Nangunghao, cautiously approaching him. However, some astute warriors rushed towards the distant Thunderstrike Stone and the treasure trove of the Lei Jiaoshi clan, aiming to intercept Nangunghao. At last, one sage arrived at Nangunghao's side, launching an unremarkable royal treasure towards him. The Tao Enlightenment golden light erupted with brilliance, instantly suppressing that royal treasure. It dawned on everyone that this golden light was extraordinary. Not all beings recognized the Tao Enlightenment golden light. After all, its rarity was what made it famous. Given its scarcity, it was inevitable that few had ever witnessed it. Some beings, undeterred by superstition, summoned their imperial artifacts to test it. A small mountain-shaped artifact hurtled towards Nangunghao's head with great force. Yet, the outcome remained the shattering of the artifact. At this point, the strong warriors sensed something amiss. One sage, unable to contain himself, unleashed his own life-bound artifact, a holy weapon-grade sword, channeling all his strength into a strike. Crack! The holy weapon sword broke without resistance. Curse be this! The sage felt immense pain, suffering from the rebound force. Now, the sages understood why Nangunghao was so audacious. It turned out that this golden light was something remarkable. However, since matters had reached this stage, they were unwilling to retreat, growing even more greedy. If they could obtain that golden light, it would be an unparalleled delight. No more holding back. Let us all attack together, lest he recovers and brings forth even more formidable treasures. After we slay this boy, we shall divide his spoils. The first to charge, a little red bird shouted, summoning a plume of feathers ablaze with roaring flames, as if the sun had fallen, painting the sky crimson for hundreds of miles. The other sages, grasping the reasoning, similarly summoned their most powerful sacred artifacts. Together, they struck. The little red bird screeched. In an instant, over a dozen sacred artifacts surged forth, bearing the might to topple mountains and seas towards Nangunghao. Yet, regardless of their overwhelming power, when they crashed against the Tao Enlightenment golden light, it merely produced a series of shattering sounds. All their sacred artifacts were destroyed. Some cried out in anguish. Others were filled with sheer terror, and some collapsed in despair. The little red bird, unable to believe its eyes, exclaimed, "What on earth is this?" Finally, a sage king, who had been observing from afar, exclaimed in astonishment, "Could it be the legendary Tao Enlightenment golden light?" Numerous beings inhaled sharply. The Tao Enlightenment golden light. It was an item possessed only by the most exceptional prodigies. In an instant, the beings began to retreat. Primarily, Retreat was inevitable. That golden light was unbreakable. Yet, at that moment, the golden light gradually receded. The little red bird cried out, "The golden light has vanished. Has it been shattered? It should not be the Tao Enlightenment golden light. After all, who can comprehend the Tao so swiftly?" Indeed, from a moment Nan Gonghao began to comprehend the Tao until the present moment when the golden light dissipated, less than a cup of tea's time had passed. Even a sudden enlightenment could not occur so rapidly. "Let's all charge again," cheered the little red bird, simultaneously unleashing its innate divine ability, spewing forth flames that soared to great heights. The other sages, initially hesitant, felt compelled to act upon witnessing the little red bird's assault. As the saying goes, once one begins, there's no turning back. They had already initiated their attack. Retreating now would be futile. Moreover, as the little red bird led the charge, even if this young prodigy were to resist, he would first have to deal with the little red bird. He could not possibly annihilate them all at once. The sages advanced with fierce expressions. Nan Gonghao had indeed concluded his Tao comprehension. Casting a glance at the incoming assault from the sages, his demeanor remained indifferent. Zila, lightning flickered from Nan Gonghao's body, then erupted in full force. Within thousands of miles, the area transformed into a sea of thunder, overwhelming all living beings. This terrifying lightning power not only instantly obliterated the little red bird and the other sages, but also exterminated those raiders at the Lei Jiaoshi stronghold. Only the Sage King, due to his distance and being an innocent party, was deliberately spared, allowing him to escape in panic. In a moment, Nan Gonghao annihilated all ill-intentioned beings, soaring forth to collect all the Thunderstrike stones along with all resources from the Lei Jiaoshi stronghold. His next destination was the Yin clan. This race was loathed by all members of the Nangong family. Had it not been for the Yin clan masquerading as guests, infiltrating the depths of the Nangong family, and launching a surprise attack with forbidden devices, how could the Nangong family have suffered such tremendous losses? This insidious clan had established a stronghold within a volcano. As soon as Nan Gonghao stepped into the volcanic area, he sensed something unusual. The protective array was activated. Previously, when Nan Gonghao had attacked the Wu Zue Jiao and the Lei Jiaoshi clan, their stronghold had its protective array as well, but they had underestimated Nan Gonghao and left it inactive. Now, the Yin clan's protective array had been activated, evidently having received prior notice. Nan Gonghao understood who had alerted them, as he had deliberately arrived at the relatively desolate strongholds of the Wu Zue Jiao and the Lei Jiaoshi clan to grant her time. "Yin clan, I have entered your array's domain. Will you not come forth to engage in battle?" Nan Gonghao's voice echoed far, shaking the volcano, almost causing it to erupt. From within the volcano, a cold snort emerged. "Nan Gonghao, do not think that just because you have ascended to the top of the ancient sage ranking, you are truly invincible. Truly invincible. I dare not claim that at present. However, annihilating a mere Yin clan stronghold is still effortless." Nan Gonghao shrugged. "Then let me experience your methods firsthand." The Yin clan sage king emerged. In dealing with Nan Gonghao, the sage realm was no longer effective. After all, the abundance of Tao power within him compelled the sage king to take action. This sage king of the Yin clan was extraordinarily powerful, having been forewarned of Nan Gonghao's capabilities and prepared with countermeasures, thus exuding confidence. Chapter 188. Has Nan Gonghao been eliminated? The Sage King realm's strength is assessed by the evaluation of Tao power. However, there are other methods of assessment, which include the depth of comprehension of the Tao power. The Yin clan sage king bellowed, and then a torrent of vigorous, blazing Tao power surged forth from him. The Yin clan specializes in a singular Tao, known as the Tao of Flames. Even more terrifying is that the Yin clan was formed from the remnants of an ancient supreme sage spirit. Each member of the Yin clan carries a trace of that sage spirit's essence. This essence can be passed down through generations. There are even legends that by infusing this essence into an ordinary flame, one can transform it into a Yin clan being, awakening its intelligence. This formidable ability allows Yin clan warriors to inherit their power through generations. At this moment, the Sage King had accumulated numerous generational inheritances, reaching an astonishing level of understanding of the Tao of Flames. He materialized a giant figure of flames, and with a wave of his hand, flames cascaded down, distorting the void with their emitted heat. Nan Gonghao's expression became somewhat serious. This Sage King was indeed powerful, a formidable adversary. "Kill!" The Yin clan Sage King roared. transforming into a shooting star. A gravitational sphere appeared around Ngonghao, drawing down celestial bodies. He actually unleashed a super devastating move right from the start. The stars crashed down upon the Yin Clan Sage King, carrying an immense force capable of flattening mountains. Yet, the Yin Clan Sage King remained calm, his flames surging, enveloping the descending stars, incinerating them completely. What a powerful flame, capable of consuming even stars. Ngonghao intensified the gravity on the Yin Clan Sage King while lightening his own weight. He floated as if made of straw. Although the Yin Clan Sage King's punch came crashing, the force of the wind merely blew Ngonghao backward, preventing him from being struck. However, in the next move, the Yin Clan Sage King altered his attack, exploding into a myriad of flames, suspended within the gravitational realm. Ngonghao furrowed his brows, pondering how the Saint King of the Yin Clan could launch an attack with such dispersed power. Yet, in an instant, a surge of flames erupted from behind him, signaling the arrival of the Yin Clan's Saint King. Ngonghao transformed into mere grass, attempting to rely on the fierce winds to carry him away. However, to his astonishment, this attack was devoid of any gusts. The Saint King had incinerated the very essence of the wind with flames. What could he possibly possess that is impervious to fire? A tremor coursed through Nngonghao's heart, and he summoned a black void that devoured the approaching flames. The Saint King, having momentarily merged with the fire, was not absorbed into the void as Ngonghao had anticipated. Indeed, in the distance, a flicker of flames danced, and the voice of the Saint King echoed. You have indeed mastered many principles of the Tao, but regrettably, you lack proficiency. What use is that? Ngonghao replied coolly, there is no need for such psychological warfare against me. What defines a genius? It is a balance of strength and mental fortitude. Even if I were to lose this battle, my resolve shall remain unbroken, untouched by your influence. The Saint King of the Yin Clan remarked in admiration, truth be told, if you are not my enemy, I would wish to take you as my disciple. Ngonghao retorted with derision, you are unworthy. While my previous words were indeed intended to rattle your psyche, there was also a sincere warning. A true powerhouse does not merely accumulate the powers of the Tao. Mastery is paramount. My Tao of flames consumes all. Can you achieve that? The voice of the Saint King turned icy. Ngonghao shook his head. I have discerned your tactics. Moreover, you are not without limitations. You have not entirely negated the gravity, have you? At that moment, the gravitational realm still exerted its influence, suppressing the scattered flames. Otherwise, those flames would have continuously shifted, transforming into various beings to launch dazzling distractions. The Saint King of the Yin Clan remained silent, evidently struck by the truth of the matter. Ngonghao continued, thus the real question is not how I shall defend against you, but rather how I shall capture you. The Saint King scoffed, come. In a flash, Ngonghao appeared beside the speaking flame, and a spatial black hole formed, instantly consuming all nearby flames. Dozens of flames were absorbed and vanished. Yet, as Ngonghao prepared to act again, other flames shattered anew. The Saint King employed a method of division. 1 became 2, 2 became 4, and 4 became 8. The sky was filled with pea-sized flames, resembling a sea of fire engulfing the heavens. Upon closer inspection, however, those flames were unconnected and could still move. How do you intend to respond? The voices emerged from the dense mass of flames, with hundreds of flames speaking in unison. Clearly, the essence of the Yin Clan could also split. However, such division likely diminished their power. Ngonghao surveyed his surroundings, his eyes gleaming with golden light. Tian Yin Tong. This ability harbored formidable strength, capable of tracing back to the source, revealing the essence of the Saint King. He pinpointed the speaking flame and summoned a large clock behind him. With a resounding clang, 3 needles merged, instantly binding the space-time of the area. This was the result of uniting the Tao of space and the Tao of time. Even the Saint King would be ensnared. Ngonghao darted forward, appearing beside the scattered flames, the white filaments of Pu Imo Chao shimmering with divine power, swiftly consuming them. Indeed, you were correct. The abundance of Tao power is of little significance. The essence lies in comprehension. How do you perceive my understanding? He taunted. To compel me to utilize these 2 supreme Taos, you have indeed met a glorious end. The Saint King of the Yin Clan was left aghast. You can actually fuse 2 Taos? This should only be achievable at the level of a Saint King. No wonder they say that if you lacked the Tianqian divine body, no one in the Guangyuan heavenly domain could rival you. Activate the Grand Formation. The Saint King of the Yin clan bellowed. The Grand Formation within the territory of the Yin clan was initiated. Flames soared skyward, forming a terrifying inferno that imprisoned Nangong Hao within. His Tao power was forcefully stripped away. Ha ha! The myriad laws returning to origin formation, handed down from our clan's ancient ancestors, can bind all laws and suppress endless Taos. Now that you cannot wield the Tao, I shall see how you dare to oppose me. The Saint King laughed heartily, confident that his strength remained unaffected. Nangong Hao remained unperturbed, merely observing the Saint King. This formation is quite impressive. In the future, when I encounter a top-tier Saint King, I shall possess the strength to contend. With that, Nangong Hao charged at the Saint King. You dare to speak arrogantly even when death is imminent. The Saint King roared, condensing a pure white flame that enveloped Nangong Hao. That flame was capable of incinerating all, transforming everything into nothingness. As Nangong Hao entered its embrace, he was instantly vaporized. Without the power of the Tao, even the most gifted of saints would become inconsequential before a Saint King. Chapter 189. Pillaging and Slaughtering. The retribution that shakes Zhongzhou Nangong Hao was reduced to azure smoke, vanishing from the world. The Saint King of the Yin clan laughed maniacally. A mere 5-star saint dares to contend with me? Seeking death. The disciples of the Yin clan wore confident and arrogant smiles. Slaying the number 1 on the ancient saint ranking was undoubtedly a sensational event that would reverberate throughout Zhongzhou. Their base would soon gain renown. Surely, the ancestors of the Yin clan would be pleased and bestow rewards upon them, right? Dispel the formation, the Saint King commanded. He then prepared to ascend back into the volcano. Just as the formation was lifted, a spear radiating holy light suddenly tore through space, appearing behind him. With a piercing sound, the spear instantly penetrated the body of the Saint King of the Yin clan. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, shock filling his eyes as he turned. Who is it? The figure of Nangong Hao gradually materialized. He had earlier transformed into light, merging with his surroundings in a flawless concealment that eluded detection. However, the Saint King was even more astonished. He had clearly perished. How could he reappear? Was it the Tao of Nirvana? No, that was impossible. The Tao of Nirvana did not resurrect in such a manner. Nangong Hao offered no explanations. Before the battle, he had utilized the replication Tao to create an identical copy of himself, which had fought the Saint King. Thus, the one who had just perished was merely a replica. Yet, even the replica possessed all of Nangong Hao's strength. This peculiar ability could be a means of survival, and Nangong Hao would never divulge it to others lightly. Nangong Hao coldly regarded the Saint King of the Yin clan and uttered softly, "Devour." The holy light spear embedded within the body of the Saint King erupted with a terrifying suction force. It was a fusion of the myriad things Tao and the order of devouring. No. The Saint King of the Yin clan could not fathom how Nangong Hao could wield various Taos in such a formidable manner. This utterly proved how foolish he had been, for he had the audacity to instruct Nangong Hao to master a single Tao to its pinnacle. Yet, it was now evident that Nangong Hao had delved deeply into each Tao. The ability to interconnect them was indicative of an exceptionally terrifying genius. The Yin clan should never have provoked the Nangong family. Fear and regret surged within the heart of the Saint King of the Yin clan. Yet he would never have the chance to convey this sentiment to his clan. He was stripped of his Tao power, along with a fragment of his holy essence. Upon sensing that holy essence, the Yu Huang seal was filled with excitement, clearly yearning for it. Indeed, such an object would be a tremendous boon for it. If that were the case, the ordinary disciples of the Yin clan must also possess their own essences. Nangong Hao's gaze turned icy as he focused on the volcano, summoning the Thunder Sea to engulf that area. Without the assistance of the Sage King, even with the myriad laws converging in the Yuan formation, Nangong Hao could only wield the power of order. However, it sufficed to annihilate these foes. The saints and monarchs of the Yin clan, filled with rage, sought to resist. Alas, combined, they were no match for Nangong Hao, not even as a singular adversary. The entire volcano was obliterated, reduced to a flat expanse, with molten lava flowing everywhere. Wreaking havoc, Nangong Hao swiftly compressed a portion of space, employing the Shumi Neryu Jia divine ability to gather all the lava, leaving not a single drop behind. Subsequently, he plundered all resources from the Yin clan stronghold and surged towards the next destination, the Kuei Mu clan. This region was inhabited by a multitude of wood spirits, occupying a vast expanse of primordial jungle, comparable in size to that of the Wuzue Diao. Yet, it was larger than the latter's stronghold. Nangonghao contemplated once more employing the strategy used against the Wuzue Diao, intending to summon a swarm of meteors to bombard the Kuei Mu clan, incinerating them. However, it was evident that the Kuei Mu clan had received advance notice. Aware of Nangonghao's ability to summon meteors, they had preemptively activated their protective formation. This array coalesced into a mist of water, hovering above the jungle. Regardless of how many meteors fell, they would be extinguished. To eliminate them, Nangonghao would have to penetrate deep into the primordial jungle. Yet, the Kuei Mu clan had disguised themselves as ordinary trees, rendering them indistinguishable to outsiders. To venture in recklessly would spell doom for Nangonghao. Unfortunately for the Kuei Mu clan, they were oblivious to the fact that Nangonghao had already acquired the Tao of Fire. In a display of might, he gathered the supreme power of spatial Tao, forcefully tearing open a rift in space and entering the Kuei Mu clan stronghold. No sooner had he entered than a sudden rush of air signaled an attack from behind. A thick vine lashed out, wielded by a 6-star sage of the Kuei Mu clan, attempting a sneak attack. Nangonghao let out a cold chuckle, transforming in a holy light and exploding into countless specks of brilliance. These luminous points merged with the Tao of Fire, spewing forth searing flames. Having absorbed the Tao of Fire, he had also mastered the techniques of the Yin clan Sage King. At this moment, he commanded these luminous points to split, doubling again and again. Before long, the entire primordial jungle was awash with glimmering light. Simultaneously, Nangonghao reopened the previously compressed space, causing an infinite surge of lava to erupt. This lava, drawn from the Yin clan stronghold, was abundant and infused with the power of the Yin clan's Tao, presenting a terrifying force that struck a significant blow to the protective formation of the Kuei Mu clan. The protective mist enveloping the jungle evaporated instantly. Moreover, Nangonghao himself unleashed the power of the Tao of Fire, launching a full-scale assault on every tree. The Kuei Mu clan, intending to masquerade as ordinary trees and conceal themselves within the jungle, found their ruse shattered as the moment any ordinary tree came into contact with Nangonghao's divided luminous points, they were incinerated completely. Left in a state of sheer terror were the wood spirits of the Kuei Mu clan, who sensed the overwhelming might of the Yin clan. The lava embodied the entire strength of the Yin clan stronghold, resulting in a cataclysmic clash between the Yin clan stronghold and the Kuei Mu clan's defenses. The outcome was naturally mutual destruction. The lava dissipated entirely, and the Kuei Mu clan's protective formation crumbled. Subsequently, Nangonghao reabsorbed the luminous points and commenced a one-sided massacre. Wielding the Tao of Fire, he inflicted devastating harm upon the Kuei Mu clan. Their Sage King fell in less than a quarter of an hour, slain on the spot. The remaining members of the Kuei Mu clan were entirely devoured. Nangonghao again plundered all resources from the stronghold and hastened towards the next target, the Yingyu clan, situated in the water. Unfortunately, the cycles of the 5 elements governed their interactions. Water nurtured wood. With the recent acquisition of the Kuei Mu clan's Kuei Mu Dao, Nangonghao unleashed a combat prowess of 120 beneath the water, decisively subduing the entire Yingyu clan. Following this, he confronted the Taijiai clan, who hid underground, utilizing the Tao of Earth for defense. With the Tao of Water, Nangonghao summoned the azure waters from the heavens, drowning all the ants. Then came the Long Shui Bao clan, the Xuemiao clan, and the Taizueho clan. Each race that had previously invaded the Donghuang region met a dire fate. Their strongholds were systematically uprooted. At times, several factions, situated too closely to one another, faced the obliteration of 2 or 3 strongholds. Through this relentless campaign of suppression and plunder, Nangonghao amassed a substantial amount of resources, leaving other beings in sheer astonishment. Nearly half of Zhongzhou became aware of his actions, all gripped by fear. Chapter 190. Yin Wushuang sets out. Nangonghao heads to the Sheng Mo sect. Almost half of Zhongzhou's populace was informed. The young prodigy, Nangonghao, hailing from the Donghuang region and pursued by ancient lands, was engaged in the frenzied uprooting of first-rate faction strongholds. These factions had once invaded Zhongzhou. This was retribution, a blatant act of vengeance. Nangonghao was employing his own means to convey to all that any who dared to invade Donghuang would meet such a fate. Such audacity was unprecedented. Over the years, many talents had emerged in Zhongzhou, yet none had displayed such unparalleled boldness. Despite the whispers and discussions among the populace, No one dared to claim that Nan Gonghao was unworthy of his arrogance. Why? He had single-handedly subdued the top 3 of the ancient sage rankings, ultimately shattering the list. By this merit alone, he held the right to be arrogant. However, the sheer audacity of Nan Gonghao in provoking so many first-rate factions left many astounded. Some even questioned why he was unafraid of these factions banding together once more to invade the Donghuang region. In the War God Palace, Yin Wuxuang had been brought back prior to the chaos in the Donghuang region. At this moment, she was in the midst of cultivation, yet found herself unable to concentrate. Her mind was filled with the image of Nan Gonghao. She believed she did not love him, yet his visage was strikingly unforgettable. Even with her cold and proud demeanor, she could not help but repeatedly recall that face, growing increasingly agitated. After all, her current status was still that of Nan Gonghao's maid. Suddenly, the door to the training chamber swung open. Yin Wuxuang's face bore a frosty expression, with a palpable aura of hostility. I have said, do not disturb my cultivation. The temperature within the training chamber plummeted to an extreme due to her anger. However, the intruder showed no concern, stating in a calm tone, I have heard that since your return, your cultivation has made no progress. Yin Wuxuang furrowed her brow, realizing the speaker was her mother, Wu Jingjing. Once a stunning beauty who captivated the world, she was also an exceedingly domineering woman. Her aspiration was to become a celestial maiden. I cannot forget Nan Gonghao. Yin Wuxuang spoke truthfully, having lived amidst slaughter and war from a young age. Her icy demeanor left no room for equivocation, particularly as she understood that her mother was not only extraordinarily powerful, but also exceptionally astute. Lying would serve no purpose, as she would undoubtedly be seen through. Wu Jingjing frowned slightly, but soon appeared relieved. That boy is indeed quite remarkable. It is rare to hear you praise a man. You have never even praised your father. Yin Wuxuang replied with sarcasm, feeling that her mother might have also been captivated by Nan Gonghao's looks. Wu Jingjing replied indifferently. Nan Gonghao has uprooted 13 strongholds of first-rate factions and is now seeking trouble with the Sheng Mo sect. Should he succeed, his renown will eclipse that of ranking first on the ancient sage list. Yin Wuxuang gasped in shock, utterly astounded. She had been in seclusion since her return and was completely unaware that Nan Gonghao had ascended to the pinnacle of the ancient sage rankings. Furthermore, she had no inkling that he had uprooted so many first-rate factions. Has this fellow gone mad? Provoking first-rate factions could barely ensure survival. But the Sheng Mo sect is a supreme power, ranked even above the War God Palace. Yin Wuxuang's voice grew urgent. Wu Jingjing remained silent, her beautiful eyes coldly observing Yin Wuxuang. The resemblance between mother and daughter was striking. The pride and indifference are remarkably alike. Their ambition has always been to ascend to the pinnacle of that grand avenue, employing any means necessary. Regarding Yin Wuxuang, Wu Jingjing is quite pleased, as she believes this daughter has inherited all her qualities. Although she does not think her daughter can surpass her, even a celestial maiden requires an exceptional successor. Does she not? Observing Yin Wuxuang's excitement over Nan Gonghao, Wu Jingjing coldly remarks, it appears you are not merely infatuated with Nan Gonghao's appearance. If that is the case, continue serving him as a maid, and one day, perhaps, you will fall in love and slay him to attain enlightenment. After uttering these words, Wu Jingjing turns and departs. Yin Wuxuang watches her mother's retreating silhouette, enveloped in silence. For the first time, she scrutinizes her mother with earnestness. This woman must be quite aged, yet time seems to have left no trace on her visage or form. Apart from a slight maturation in her demeanor, Wu Jingjing's face remains as flawless as ever, and her figure remains alluringly voluptuous, enough to evoke envy in any young maiden. However, Yin Wuxuang is indifferent to these attributes, for she knows that the one thing time has not altered is Wu Jingjing's ambition and ruthlessness. If one day Wu Jingjing discovers that annihilating all the members of the War God Palace could lead to enlightenment, she would undoubtedly show no mercy, even towards her own husband and daughter. Then, looking at Nan Gonghao, he too is ambitious and desires enlightenment. Yet he dares to offend so many powerful figures for the sake of the eastern wilderness. What would Nan Gonghao do if he were told that slaughtering those around him would grant him immortality? The moment this thought arises in Yin Wuxuang's mind, she shakes her head. Nan Gonghao would not act in such a manner. Even if killing 2 innocents could lead to enlightenment, he would refrain from doing so. Not because of his profound compassion, but because this is not the path he has chosen. Wu Jingjing's resolve is unwavering to attain enlightenment. She is willing to employ any means. Nangong Hao's resolve is equally steadfast, yet he adheres to a singular method of cultivation. This is the divergence between the two of them. Yin Wushuang slowly rises and steps outside. She is uncertain of what to do, but seeking out Nangong Hao can never be a mistake. Wu Jingjing stands at a distance, observing her daughter ascend into the sky, her expression inscrutable. Beside her is Yin Yunk, the master of the War God Palace. Yin Yunk expresses his dissatisfaction. Jingjing, why do you allow Wushuang to seek out Nangong Hao? What he said is true. Wushuang cannot reach the zenith of the emotionless sword path solely by severing her emotions. She must experience feelings. Thus, once she falls in love with Nangong Hao, she will either slay him herself or I shall assist in his demise. When that time comes, his death will mark the day Wushuang achieves mastery in her emotionless sword path. Wu Jingjing responds with indifference. Hearing his wife's words, Yin Yunk reluctantly acquiesces. However, he cannot help but remind her, Nangong Hao possesses extraordinary talent. Although others believe he cannot resolve the heavenly lockchain issue, I still feel he has a chance. We shall see. Wu Jingjing turns and departs. Yin Yunk sighs softly, gazing at his wife's retreating figure, filled with profound resignation. Meanwhile, Nangong Hao has already arrived at the stronghold of the holy demon sect. Many spectators gather, eagerly awaiting the spectacle. Following the recent removal of a first-rate power stronghold, Nangong Hao publicly declared his intentions to assault the holy demon sect stronghold. This formidable force has dominated the region of Zhongzhou for countless eons, and the only powers capable of removing their stronghold must be of equal strength. How many millennia has it been? This is the first time a young prodigy from a remote region has proclaimed an attack on the holy demon sect. Chapter 191. Unassailable, I shall begin my counterattack. If anyone else were to declare intentions to eliminate the holy demon sect stronghold, they would not only be disregarded, but likely scorned as a fool unaware of their limitations. Yet, Nangong Hao is beyond reproach. He sprinted up the ascending sky hall, boldly repelling the Buddhist sect, and was personally ordered to be hunted down by the ancient lands. As the number one on the ancient sage list, with the strength of a 5-star saint realm, he withstood 13 saint kings from first-rate powers and dismantled 13 strongholds. These accomplishments, even if presented individually, would be enough to instill dread across a region. Now, all of them coalesce around one individual, instilling an inexplicable trust in him. It seems he might truly be capable of dismantling the holy demon sect stronghold. As Nangong Hao arrives at the stronghold of the holy demon sect, he confronts a site where 2 saint kings stand guard, accompanied by 20 saint-level experts, all formidable combatants. Additionally, an array capable of summoning ancient deities protects the site. This stronghold is likely even stronger than the previous 13 he dismantled. Thousands of beings gather nearby, their excitement palpable. This will undoubtedly be a legendary battle. They sense they will gain invaluable insights. Even if they do not, at the very least, they will witness something extraordinary. Several storytellers are ready with pen and paper, eager to document this moment for future tales to profit from. Amidst the crowd's anticipation, Nangong Hao strides forth, exuding an overwhelming aura that stirs the spiritual tides for miles around. He hovers in mid-air, addressing the 2 saint kings of the holy demon sect below. I offer you the chance to seek assistance. Upon hearing this, the onlookers collectively gasp in astonishment. How audacious! He dares to demand that a Supreme Force's stronghold call for reinforcements? The audacity is staggering. The powerful members of the holy demon sect, brimming with indignation, hear this and are enraged. The 2 saint kings surge forward, hovering in the air, one to the left and the other to the right, fixing their gazes upon Nangong Hao. Young man, you are exceedingly arrogant. I grant you one chance. Join the holy demon sect, and we shall overlook your transgressions. Clearly, the holy demon sect is tempted by Nangong Hao's prowess, wishing to recruit him. The surrounding crowd is momentarily stunned, their eyes turning green with envy. To be courted by a supreme power is an immense fortune. However, Nangong Hao is unlikely to be swayed. Indeed, he simply shakes his head. Do you wish to meet your demise within the confines of the array or outside of it? The expressions of the 2 saint kings of the holy demon sect darken instantly. They rush beyond the protective boundary of the stronghold. If 2 saint kings are compelled to rely on the protective array to secure victory against a 5-star saint, even if they succeed in the end, the reputation of the holy demon sect would be irreparably tarnished. A confrontation is imminent. The onlookers are electrified. Even those inside the holy demon sect stronghold are invigorated. their eyes fixed intently on the unfolding scene. Nangong Hao spreads his arms wide, a radiant five-colored light enveloping the air, manifesting a kaleidoscopic realm. This is the Five Elements Path, a powerful divine ability forged from a convergence of five elemental principles. However, at this moment, the divine ability merely gathers strength, leaving the crowd oblivious to its potential effects. The two Saint Kings of the Holy Demon Sect, named Qilian and Qilu, are brothers. Qilian takes the initiative, directly communing with the divine entities. He channels abundant spiritual energy to construct an unusual black symbol before him. This symbol, entwined with dark energies, rapidly coalesces into a dense black mist. From within the mist, echoes of furious roars resonate, sending waves of sound rippling through the air. The distant onlookers feel their blood surge with excitement. They cannot help but recoil in awe. If mere sounds provoke such a reaction, what formidable entity must be contained within? Although it may seem slow, the summoning occurs in the blink of an eye. A creature, cloaked in a coat of pure white fur, with a green visage and menacing tusks, surged forth from the black mist. It was the legendary beast Hamba. Those well-versed in ancient lore gasped in terror. The other beings, too, recoiled in fear. Hamba, an ancient terror, heralds calamity wherever it roams, a truly fearsome entity. It is said that in ancient times, a Hamba wreaked havoc across vast territories, slaughtering countless creatures. Ultimately, only the intervention of the Zhuan Di could quell its rampage and bring an end to that grisly saga. Although the Hamba summoned by Qilian might not possess such overwhelming power, it undeniably radiated a palpable threat. Nangong Hao recognized the Hamba, yet he remained unfazed. He did not even flinch, instead casting a glance towards Qilu. Qilu felt a surge of humiliation, but quickly began his summoning. A golden rune rapidly took shape before him, exuding an air of solemnity and sanctity. It was evident that he was summoning a divine being. Soon, a figure emerged from the golden light, resembling a plum-blossom deer, yet adorned with a singular horn upon its snout. Nangong Hao instantly identified it, the ancient auspicious beast, Jiao Rui. This creature revered the enlightened sovereign, and through prolonged companionship, it had absorbed the sovereign's aura. It could suppress malevolence and wield the majesty of kings to dominate the realms, rendering foes powerless. Upon witnessing these two ancient beings, Nangong Hao remarked with indifference, not too shabby. Qilian's expression darkened, arrogant. Besides mastering summoning arts, I have also cultivated the way of the blade. With that, he drew forth a 9-ringed saber, exuding an imposing presence. Qilu, likewise, had cultivated the way of music, producing a jade flute. The two brothers exchanged a glance before simultaneously declaring, "Kill." The Hamba roared, emitting a blinding white light that, upon its release, drained the moisture from the land for miles around, plunging it into a parched desolation. Anyone caught within its reach would be turned to jerky. Jiao Rui struck with a powerful fist, unleashing immense force. At the same moment, Qilian charged forward, saber raised, radiating a formidable aura. Qilu, from a distance, played a haunting melody on his flute, transforming the notes into ghostly tendrils that ensnared the souls of the onlookers, instilling profound dread. Yet, Nangong Hao merely shook his head at their onslaught. With a resonant hum, the prepared 5 elements divine light descended, sweeping over the 4 beings present. Qilian's saber and Qilu's flute instantly lost their potency, even being stripped away. The brothers were left aghast, bewildered by this formidable power. But what struck them with greater terror was yet to come. Facing the assault of Hamba and Jiao Rui, Nangong Hao simply uttered collapse. In the next instant, the very space where the two ancient beings stood imploded. Hamba and Jiao Rui uttered no sound as they, along with their attacks, were instantaneously crushed and reduced to mere images. This was a divine ability crafted by Nangong Hao, inspired by a popular internet meme from his past life, Dimensional Strike. It collapsed the 3-dimensional space into a 2-dimensional plane, inevitably compressing the beings within. Thus, the two ancient entities met their untimely demise without ever having the chance to unleash their might. In the following moment, Nangong Hao retaliated in earnest. He surged toward Qilian, his right fist imbued with boundless gravity, striking out. Qilian's expression shifted dramatically as he bellowed, "Unity of man and blade." The blade Dao technique. He transformed his body into a blade, fiercely cleaving at Nangong Hao's fist. A colossal blade descended, seemingly threatening to cleave the very heavens asunder. Boom! The fist collided with the blade's edge. A tremendous force radiated outward, rippling through the space as if it were on the verge of shattering. The surrounding crowd gasped in astonishment. How could Nangong Hao, at the 5-star saint level, comprehend the gravity path to such profound heights, allowing him to contend with the power of a Saint King? Moreover, this contest was not merely one of Daoic force, but also a clash of deep spiritual energy. Generally, the combined spiritual energy of 10 9-star saints might not equal that of a newly ascended Saint King. Yet, in this clash, the saber and Nangong Hao's fist, despite their energy expenditure, stood evenly matched. Qilu, assist me. Qilian called for help. The onlookers were taken aback. How could the Saint King of the Holy Demon Sect be outmatched? Qilu, feeling a tremor within, thrust his hand skyward, conjuring a long flute from the air, unleashing a chilling melody. The sound morphed into an army of malevolent spirits, rushing towards Nangong Hao. With a mocking smile, Nangong Hao's fist and the blade clashed. Yet he still had the capacity to spare a hand to wield the Qianxiu Lunhui brush. As Qilu summoned wicked spirits, Nangong Hao conjured divine generals. The clash of generals and spirits transformed the sky into an expansive battlefield, rife with chaos. Nangong Hao single-handedly withstood the combined might of the two formidable Saint Kings, eliciting gasps of awe from all present. This youth was extraordinarily formidable. I refuse to believe this. Qilu, caught off guard, bellowed in frustration, "Invert." Nangong Hao suddenly felt a mysterious force act upon him. His vitality reversed, and his spiritual energy ebbed. The power that ought to have been unleashed upon his foes turned inward, affecting only himself. With a cough, Nangong Hao suffered grievous harm, spitting forth a mouthful of blood. Yet this was but a minor setback. The true peril lay in the loss of his strength as the blade came crashing down. Simultaneously, the divine general he had conjured surged forth alongside the sound of the flute, propelled by the melody. The inversion path. It turned heaven and earth upside down, reversing life and death. Encounters with this path would yield opposite outcomes. Nangong Hao was shattered by Qilian's strike, dispersing into a myriad of light particles, only to reassemble in the distance. Thereafter, he utilized the path of time to restore himself to his previous peak state. Qilian's pupils constricted. This youth possesses several paths. Continue the inversion, he commanded, abandoning the Blade Dao in favor of a new one. As a Saint King of supreme power, mastery over 3 paths was a fundamental requirement. The path of calamity that Qilian invoked enabled him to summon fearsome disasters, naturally granting him dominion over calamity. The brothers Qilian and Qilu rejoined forces. One summoned a terrifying natural disaster, channeling the forces of heaven and earth to obliterate Nangong Hao. The other inverted Nangong Hao's power, rendering him incapable of unleashing his might. There is no superiority in paths, only the manner of their application. The battle among the three exemplified this adage vividly. Surrounding beings were exhilarated, having learned much. Meanwhile, Nangong Hao remained expressionless, his hands coalescing into a spear of divine light, which he hurled into the void. The brothers Qilian and Qilu grew increasingly vigilant, aware that a spatial rift could open at any moment, allowing a spear to pierce them. Yet, as they heightened their caution, they felt a sudden chill in their chests and instinctively looked down. To their horror, 2 spears had penetrated them. The brothers fell into despair, unable to comprehend how they had been harmed. The other beings around were paralyzed with fear, for they had witnessed it all clearly. The 2 spears had appeared within their bodies, as though they had sprouted from the very forms of Qilian and Qilu. Suddenly, the storyteller exclaimed, "I understand. It is the path of space." Nangong Hao has utilized the powers of the path of space to directly teleport his weapon into the bodies of the 2 Saint Kings. A collective gasp of terror rippled through the crowd. What a bizarre ability. The brothers Qilian and Qilu realized their fate, yet it was too late. The divine light spears erupted with at least 7 types of Daoic power, instantaneously annihilating them and consuming their essence. Nangong Hao's body radiated a golden light of enlightenment, boldly manifesting his comprehension of the powers of the 2 Saint Kings before the crowd. This spectacle plunged the surrounding beings into a bitter despair. Is this what it means to be a prodigy? It is no wonder he has claimed the top position on the list of the ancient saints. However, the ones most astonished and frustrated were the inhabitants of the Shengma sect stronghold. They had not anticipated the demise of 2 Saint Kings in such a manner. In that moment, they were at a loss, unsure whether to resist or seek assistance. Resist? With the Saint Kings deceased, what could they possibly do? Seek help from the headquarters? That would turn their stronghold into a laughingstock among all. While the creatures within the Shengma sect were troubled, others eagerly awaited the unfolding drama, curious about the sect's next move. Within the Shengma sect, several of the influential seven-star saints were embroiled in intense discord. They debated whether to utilize the teleportation array and flee entirely, though they understood that even if they escaped, the headquarters would impose severe punishments upon them. Staying put could very well mean death. Before they could reach a consensus, the golden light of enlightenment surrounding Nian Gonghao dissipated, signaling the conclusion of his comprehension. All eyes turned to him, eager to discern his next action. The formidable beings of the Shengma sect also looked up at the void, anxious and tense. With a slight stabilization of his state, Nian Gonghao addressed the inhabitants of the Shengma sect stronghold. Surrender all your stored resources, and you shall remain unharmed. Such an ultimatum was a ruthless blow to the heart. His words cast the inhabitants of the Shengma sect into a state of turmoil. To relinquish their possessions meant survival. Yet such an act would render them the subject of ridicule and invite punishment from their headquarters. Conversely, refusing to comply left them uncertain of whether Nian Gonghao would storm in at any moment. After contemplating briefly, Nian Gonghao added, I understand this predicament weighs heavily upon you, so allow me to assist. With that, he raised his hand, directing it towards the Shengma sect formation. Inversion. The fusion of the inversion Dao and the spatial Dao unleashed a terrifying and bizarre power, instantly tearing apart the protective array of the Shengma sect stronghold. Now, is your choice still so difficult? Nian Gonghao inquired indifferently. The multitude of beings trembled, astonished that Nian Gonghao had so swiftly grasped the inversion Dao. The inhabitants of the Shengma sect, now devoid of hesitation, surrendered their resources in a state of despair, fearing the punishment of death far more than the ridicule of their peers. After utilizing various methods to verify that no hidden resources remained, Nian Gonghao departed with satisfaction. In that moment, he had achieved renown. Chapter 193. Qin Shuiao in distress. Lu Qinghui comes knocking. Nian Gonghao had slain 2 saint kings of the Shengma sect. This news, disseminated by those with ulterior motives and eager gossipers, swiftly reached the ears of all beings in Zhongzhou. Previously, when Nian Gonghao vied for the top position on the ancient saints list, only many major powers were aware of him. Now, however, every being had heard of his name. After all, this was the Shengma sect, a superpower that had existed in Zhongzhou for countless ages, even since the ancient era. They were the very essence of Zhongzhou. With the death of 2 saint kings, Nian Gonghao had effectively dismantled a stronghold of the Shengma sect, akin to puncturing a hole in the heavens. Moreover, he had eradicated the strongholds of over a dozen top-tier powers. Such astonishing achievements transcended all prodigies in Zhongzhou. Many young prodigies, who typically engaged in subtle comparisons of status, were taken aback by a youth emerging from the remote East wilderness, who overshadowed them all with an imposing presence. This provoked immense ire among numerous young prodigies, particularly those from the top-tier powers whose strongholds had been dismantled as they dispatched formidable beings in search of Nian Gonghao. They sought vengeance. Even the Shengma sect had a young supreme being proclaiming intentions to personally hunt down Nian Gonghao. Yet, Nian Gonghao remained unfazed by these threats as he made his way to the Ying sect. However, he was intercepted midway by Yan Wushuang. Upon seeing the young servant girl, Nian Gonghao smiled faintly. I thought you would never come to see me again. That was indeed the case, but my mother has instructed me to kill you. Yan Wushuang replied expressionlessly. Nian Gonghao shrugged. All right, let us first head to the Ying sect. You're not the least bit concerned? Yan Wushuang inquired, noticing his nonchalance. Currently, countless beings in Zhongzhou wish for my demise, certainly no less than 1,000. Do you think I can afford to worry about whether your parents wish to take my life? Nian Gonghao replied indifferently. Upon hearing this, Yan Wushuang displayed a flicker of confusion. I cannot comprehend why you would provoke so many people. They initiated the conflict. I am merely retaliating, Nian Gonghao stated coolly. Yan Wushuang frowned, surprised by his words, for they clearly positioned him alongside the top-tier powers, even the most formidable factions. However, given his typically arrogant nature, she chose not to press further. Following behind Nian Gonghao, she remained silent as before. Before long, Nian Gonghao arrived at the entrance of the Ying sect. Yan Wushuang hesitated. What brings you here? Xiao and the others are here, so I naturally must come, Nian Gonghao replied as he stepped towards the Ying sect. Yan Wushuang, fully aware of Qin Shuiao's presence, quickly added, I wanted to ask if you're certain the Ying sect welcomes you? Nan Gonghao did not answer, but walked straight into the inner sanctum of the Ying sect. Observing this, Yin Wushuang was taken aback. She had not anticipated that the Ying sect would genuinely accept Nan Gonghao. What were these women planning? Would they truly oppose the ancient lands and so many other factions? Unbeknownst to her, the elders and the sect leader of the Ying sect were already in a heated argument. Initially, they were not entirely opposed to Nan Gonghao's entry. However, upon learning of his dismantling of over a dozen top-tier strongholds and provoking the Shengma sect, their willingness diminished significantly. After all, even the Ying sect would prefer not to offend so many factions simultaneously. Nevertheless, these dissenting voices were firmly suppressed by the sect leader. As Nan Gonghao approached Qianling Mountain, intending to seek out Qin Shuiyao, he was met by Yin Xiaoqiao, who rushed down to inform him. Shuiyao and Yinner have been punished and sent to the Insect Valley. Why? Nan Gonghao frowned. Even if he was unfamiliar with the Ying sect, he understood that the Insect Valley was certainly no pleasant place. Yin Xiaoqiao sighed. I do not know why Shuiyao and Yinner did this, but they stormed the Haining Peak where Elder Lu Qingwei resides, injuring many fellow disciples. The Ying sect enforces strict laws against infighting among disciples, so they were sent to the Insect Valley as punishment. Nan Gonghao nodded slightly. Where is Haining Peak? If anyone else had asked, Yin Xiaoqiao might have thought he intended to plead on their behalf. However, she knew Nan Gonghao's temper all too well. He would simply annihilate all beings on the mountain. Yin Xiaoqiao's complexion turned pale, and she hastily said, the Haining Peak did not provoke Shuiyao this time. They went there unexpectedly. I understand. Take me there. I will not harm the ordinary disciples, Nan Gonghao stated coolly. Ordinary disciples? What constitutes an ordinary disciple? Below the Saint King level? Yin Xiaoqiao could not fathom this and was reluctant to lead him there. At that moment, a furious voice echoed from above Qianling Mountain. Luo Jiuqi, come out this instant. That voice belonged to Lu Qingwei. Yin Xiaoqiao's face fell in despair. It was over. How could it be so coincidental? Upon hearing the commotion, Nan Gonghao surged into the void. Luo Jiuqi reacted swiftly, speaking in a deep tone. Elder Lu, the punishment hall has already penalized Shuiyao and the others. What more do you desire? What more do I desire? They have harmed so many of my disciples, and some have even had their foundations destroyed. Is merely sending them into the Insect Valley sufficient? If you truly wish to resolve this matter, find a way to give me an appropriate explanation. Otherwise, even if it means violating the sect rules, I shall not allow Qianling Mountain and her sisters to find peace. Lu Qingwei roared in anger. Nan Gonghao suddenly spoke, his tone calm. Lu Qingwei, is it? I am Shuiyao's fiancé. If you see compensation, why not let me provide it? In the air, Lu Qinghui's fury dissipated at the sight of Nan Gonghao not far away, her face paling instantly. She hurriedly retreated, almost fleeing towards the main peak. The other elders, drawn by the commotion, initially intended to mediate, but were taken aback to see Lu Qingwei, who had been seething with rage, now fleeing in panic. They were utterly perplexed. Even Luo Jiuqi, who had just taken to the sky to intervene, was momentarily stunned. Nan Gonghao coldly smiled. Lu Qingwei, are you not exhausted? After circling back from the outside, instead of resting, you come to stir trouble at Qianling Mountain? Lu Qinghui's terror escalated as she realized Nan Gonghao must know something. She cried out, Sect Master, save me. Your Sect Master can indeed save you, but how many times can he do so? You may evade for a moment, but can you hide for a lifetime? Had I known this, why would I have schemed against you from behind? As Nan Gonghao raised his hand, the space trembled. Yet, in the next moment, a peculiar energy separated him from Lu Qingwei. It was the elder from the punishment hall intervening. She was a strikingly beautiful woman. Exuding a maturoha. Suspended in the air, she gazed impassively at Nan Gonghao. Speak clearly. Nan Gonghao mocked with a smile. Do I need to spell it out? Evidence. The elder's expression shifted slightly, clearly aware of something. Chapter 194. Evidence? I have none, but I can threaten you. Upon hearing the elder's words, Nan Gonghao replied nonchalantly. This matter is for you to inquire of Lu Qingwei. Where was she when Shuiyao attacked Haining Peak? Hearing this, the elder turned her gaze to Lu Qinghui, who was now ashen. She finally comprehended why Qin Shuiyao had suddenly sought to kill at Haining Peak. From the very beginning, Nan Gonghao and Qin Shuiyao had anticipated her interference. Previously, Nan Gonghao had openly declared his intent to confront the Yin clan and other factions at the Ying New Zone. And Lu Qinghui, displeased with him, had deliberately gone to warn those factions. This had allowed them to be on guard. However, She never expected that Nan Gonghao, displaying remarkable martial ethics, had refrained from sneak attack. Instead, he had boldly swept through, directly dismantling those strongholds with his overwhelming attitude and power. Her warning had proven utterly futile, rendering her a mere jester in the grand scheme. Even more embarrassingly, the two had predicted her actions. Qin Shuyao's sudden attack on Haining Peak was to prove Lu Qinghui's absence there. If she was not at Haining Peak, where else could she be? Now, Lu Qinghui had to concoct a perfect excuse, for otherwise, the elder from the punishment hall would not spare her. Under the cold gaze of the punishment hall elder and the peculiar stares of the other elders, Lu Qinghui felt beads of sweat forming on her forehead. Anxiety gripping her. I returned to my family. Your family is a top-tier clan? Nan Gonghao inquired blandly. What do you intend to do? Lu Qinghui initially considered boasting about this proud matter, but suddenly realized the gravity of her situation. Nan Gonghao had just dismantled the strongholds of several top-tier factions. To him, the background of a top-tier faction was inconsequential. Yet for Lu Qinghui, if her family discovered that her foolishness had prompted Nan Gonghao to obliterate their strongholds, they would surely despise her. She gazed at Nan Gonghao in terror, a mere Saint King reduced to a quivering mess. To be frank, what Shuiao had done could only prove you were not at Haining Peak. I have no evidence to prove you informed those factions and betrayed me. However, I strongly advise you to admit it. Otherwise, your family shall never establish strongholds again. Nan Gonghao's gaze was indifferent. His words fell from his lips like a chilling wind from the abyss, causing Lu Qinghui to tremble in fear. The other elders were either seething with rage or wore grim expressions. Such threats were typically directed at others, and it was their first time hearing someone speak thus to a member of a supreme power. Yet they felt powerless. For Nan Gonghao possessed the credentials to threaten Lu Qinghui, having just dismantled the strongholds of several top-tier factions. Lu Qinghui bore far greater pressure than the others, not only because she was the one being threatened, but also because she had witnessed Nan Gonghao's relentless onslaught firsthand. His prideful demeanor as he dismantled stronghold after stronghold was etched deeply into her memory. Although Lu Qinghui held the esteemed title of Saint King from a supreme faction, she could only be considered at a lower tier. Under such immense pressure, she could no longer bear it and ultimately broke down in confession. I'm sorry. It was my mistake. I should not have betrayed you. The numerous elders of the Ying New Zone were taken aback, their expressions shifting dramatically. None had anticipated that Lu Qinghui had intentionally sought out those factions to betray Nan Gonghao. An elder from a supreme faction resorting to such despicable means against a young man was utterly disgraceful. However, this revealed a crucial fact. Those factions, despite being on high alert, had still been dismantled one by one. The crowd's assessment of Nan Gonghao soared to new heights. This young man possessed tremendous might. The punishment hall elder coldly regarded Lu Qinghui. Go to Haodong Mountain. Lu Qinghui was even more terrified. I merely betrayed an outsider. Is that reason enough to send me to Haodong Mountain? The other elders were equally astonished. Haodong Mountain was notorious for punishing Saint Kings. It was enveloped in a strange power that could seal a Saint King's path, forcing them to survive like ordinary people in the valley. Yet, the valley was fraught with peril, making life there a living hell. Typically, those sent there were guilty of grave offenses. Under normal circumstances, Lu Qinghui's betrayal of Nan Gonghao would warrant nothing more than a loss of face and a brief confinement. The punishment hall elder stated coldly, "This is the sect master's wish." Upon hearing this, Lu Qinghui immediately lowered her head. Though she did not comprehend the sect master's intentions, she dared not defy them. Nan Gonghao disregarded Lu Qinghui's punishment and calmly inquired, "Can Shuiao and the others be released now?" "No, they too have erred. To be released, they must either wait until their punishment is complete or break out themselves." The punishment hall elder shook her head. Nan Gonghao furrowed his brow. "Where's the insect valley?" "It lies in the core region, inaccessible to outsiders." The punishment hall elder replied impassively. "Very well." To everyone's surprise, Nan Gonghao truly turned and walked away. This brought a sigh of relief to the tense Yin Xiaoqiao, though she remained puzzled. In fact, even the punishment hall elder displayed a look of confusion. According to Nan Gonghao's temperament, he should have insisted on forcefully rescuing them. Did he realize he could not break through and thus intended to sneak in? But soon, everyone shook their heads. Had this been earlier, they might have harbored some doubts. However, Nan Gonghao was fully aware that someone had leaked information, yet still boldly dismantled the strongholds of top-tier factions. Thus, he would certainly not engage in any underhanded tactics. Under the gaze of the crowd, Nangong Hao proceeded towards Qianling Mountain. Luo Jiushi, noticing Nangong Hao heading towards her location, followed him, uncertainty clouding her expression. The two alighted atop the mountain, and Luo Jiushi curiously regarded Nangong Hao. What do you plan to do? Do you have any rare alchemy formulas? Nangong Hao replied indifferently. Indeed, I do have some, but do you wish to refine pills? Luo Jiushi was taken aback. Nangong Hao nodded, stating that he had just grasped the essence of the Tao of alchemy and wished to experiment. Luo Jiushi, somewhat speechless, inquired about the extent of his understanding of the Tao. South Palace Hao shook his head, indicating that he had not kept track and requested the alchemical formula instead. Luo Jiushi was taken aback. What did it mean not to keep track? Was it that he had comprehended so many that he could not count them? How terrifying! Luo Jiushi's expression shifted dramatically, but she quickly set about retrieving the formula, knowing that the supreme powers held numerous valuable recipes. As an elder, although her strength was rather low, it was precisely because of this that she possessed even more privately kept alchemical formulas. She understood that in a contest of talent, she could not compete, so she sought to enhance her capabilities through elixirs. However, the results were not particularly promising, as her alchemical skills were lacking, and many ingredients were difficult to gather. After all, even among the supreme powers, it was improbable to allocate such rare resources to an elder of limited talent. Although Lu Qinghui was not exceptional either, she was supported by top-tier power and had access to numerous valuable items. Contemplating this, Luo Jiushi sighed and turned to South Palace Hao, only to be taken aback. He had amassed a mountain of treasures. Chapter 195. Is there a problem with the elixirs? The treasures that South Palace Hao presented were plundered from various top-tier forces. While they were merely from outposts and not the pinnacle of rare treasures, they were still quite substantial. After all, they were gathered from over a dozen first-rate powers, including a stronghold of the Sheng Mo sect. Moreover, South Palace Hao's timing for the heist was fortuitous. Typically, resources from various strongholds were dispatched to their respective headquarters once a year. When South Palace Hao raided, these sects had accumulated a year's worth of resources that had yet to be transported. Luo Jiushi gazed at the pile of resources, including Shui Ling Chao, which could purify blood and increase its capacity, Shi Ling, which significantly enhanced physical strength, and Xilan Xiang, which fortified the soul. Many of these treasures made Luo Jiushi envious, some of which she could not even obtain. Upon receiving the alchemical formula from Luo Jiushi, South Palace Hao selected one that was marginally acceptable, Ling Ming Dan, which could enhance soul strength and aid in comprehension of the Tao. Yet, he frowned and asked if this was truly the best formula available. Hearing this, Luo Jiushi was at a loss for words. These formulas were indeed precious in the outside world. Even among the supreme powers, not everyone could utilize them. Qiling Mountain produced only 10 Ling Ming Dan annually. However, knowing that South Palace Hao had grasped the Tao of alchemy, she conceded, stating that many of her formulas were incomplete or required top-tier sacred herbs, which he could not use. Can I find them at your sect's alchemy hall? South Palace Hao furrowed his brow. Yes, but it requires a trade, and outsiders are refused. Luo Jiushi replied, shrugging her shoulders. Then I shall purchase them. South Palace Hao produced a massive bolt of Thunderstrike stone, asking if it would suffice. Luo Jiushi's eyelids twitched. Had he brought an entire stronghold of the Lei Jiao clan? If not for the uselessness of the other strongholds, I would have brought them all. South Palace Hao replied nonchalantly. Luo Jiushi shook her head, choosing to say no more. She took the Thunderstrike stone to the sect's alchemy hall to exchange for a formula. This substantial piece of Thunderstrike stone was highly valuable, and the alchemy hall indeed provided her with a top-tier formula, Sheng Yuan Dan. As the name suggests, it contained the essence of a saint, capable of permanently enhancing the user's aptitude. Moreover, crafting Sheng Yuan Dan required the infusion of saintly blood. The stronger the saint providing the blood, the more potent the effects of Sheng Yuan Dan. Without hesitation, South Palace Hao opted to infuse his own blood, confident that no one could surpass him in terms of talent and inherent strength. Just the ability to endure the convergence of over 20 Tao within his body was testament to the formidable quality of his Tian Qian divine body. Employing the order of artifacts, South Palace Hao condensed a grand cauldron, casting the necessary materials while complementing the Tao of alchemy with the Tao of flame for refinement. Within the cauldron, various spiritual herbs gradually dissolved, merging with other elixirs and essences to form a concoction. As this concoction slowly solidified into Dan and I, Luo Jiushi shamelessly observed, knowing that such alchemical and artifact forging abilities were crucial yet exceedingly rare. Individuals typically concealed such techniques and those adept at them. Consequently, despite her exalted position as a saint king of a supreme power, her alchemical skills remained woefully inadequate. Luo Jiushi mused that observing and learning from this young man crafting alchemical elixirs on her mountain peak was not inappropriate. South Palace How indeed did not dismiss her, which only heightened her excitement. However, she soon comprehended why he had not expelled her. There were two reasons. First, South Palace How's alchemical skills were even poorer than hers. He was utterly clumsy and relied entirely on the Tao of alchemy. Second, the materials he used to craft Shengyuan Dan were derived from himself. Luo Jiushi watched as South Palace How forcibly extracted 10 drops of his own blood and added them to the cauldron. Boom! Golden light erupted from the convergence of the Tao. At least 20 types of Tao powers swirled and intertwined, transforming into a primordial world-s illusion. Within that illusory realm, ancient titans roared, and supreme deities stood proudly. Even a mere fragment of their power shook the heavens. Thunder rumbled. The sky was suddenly filled with lightning, and endless dark clouds gathered, obscuring the sky above Qiling Mountain. Dunjia! Luo Jiushi was alarmed and immediately activated the formation to protect Qiling Mountain. In the distance, atop the main peak, the leader of the Yingnu sect was managing affairs when she suddenly looked up, her expression shifting in surprise. It was said that one cannot bite off more than one can chew. This young man had effortlessly fused over 20 Tao. What level of talent did he possess? Suddenly, a voice resonated as if traversing through ancient time, whispering in the leader's ear, "This child shall be invincible." The leader's complexion changed slightly, and she immediately bowed her head in respect, uttering, "I pay my respects to the ancestor." However, the voice did not reappear, nor were there any further words, as if no one had ever spoken. Yet the phrase, "This child shall be invincible," was clearly heard by the leader. She hesitated, uncertain of the ancestor's intent. Could it be that? No, that was impossible. South Palace How's limitations were too great for the ancestor to act in such a manner. The leader shook her head, but her thoughts sounded like mere self-reassurance. Others from the Yingnu sect also noticed the commotion at Qiling Mountain, all of them utterly astonished. A single person was capable of converging over 20 types of Tao within themselves. This not only pertained to talent, but also to the ability to comprehend and perfectly control these Tao, as well as whether one's body could endure such an overwhelming resonance of the Tao. It could be said that even many saint kings would struggle to withstand it. Yet, South Palace How was merely a 5-star saint. This was nothing short of defiance against the heavens. Even Lu Qinghui, witnessing this scene from the imposing mountain, gritted her teeth, thinking, "One cannot bite off more than one can chew. Sooner or later, you will be overwhelmed by these Tao powers." South Palace How paid no heed to the envy and jealousy of those around him. With a long howl, he sent the cauldron soaring into the sky. Jade must be polished to become a gem. The same goes for elixirs. Without the tempering of thunder, they cannot become true sacred elixirs. Boom, boom, boom. Dozens of bolts of lightning descended fiercely, striking the cauldron. The order of artifacts was instantly shattered. Yet the Dan and I remained suspended in the void, emanating a shimmering array of colors, miraculously unscathed despite the relentless onslaught of thunder. Luo Jiushi, witnessing the Dan and I bathe in the radiance of lightning, felt a pang of envy and could not help but ask, "Young Master Nangong, once the elixir is completed, could you part with one for me?" Nangong Hao waved his hand, declaring, "I shall bestow all of these upon Xuyao. You may speak with her at that time." Luo Jiushi let out a sigh of relief, trusting that she would hold some degree of esteem in Qin Xuyao's eyes. Acquiring one for her own enhancement should pose no challenge. Indeed, upon witnessing the Xingyuan Dan, even the most powerful of Saint Kings could not help but feel stirred. Yet at that moment, a startled cry from afar pierced the air. The elixir has encountered a problem. What? Luo Jiushi gasped, her expression turning pale as she hurriedly raised her gaze. To her dismay, the previously radiant elixir had abruptly turned to charred black, as though struck by a bolt of lightning. How could this happen? She cried out in anguish. Meanwhile, the elders who bore animosity towards Qiling Mountain displayed expressions of schadenfreude. Chapter 196, Shengdao Dan. The sisters escape punishment. The Xingyuan Dan, forged from Nangong Hao's own essence, was undeniably formidable, eliciting trepidation from many saint kings. They believed that any disciple of Qianling Mountain consuming this elixir would experience an extraordinary enhancement in talent and physique. However, upon witnessing the elixir's transformation into a charred mass, those who resented Nan Gonghao were filled with elation. Deservedly so. Let this serve as a lesson. Some could not restrain their mockery, suggesting, Elder Luo, this elixir may not withstand the thunderstrike. I recommend you refine it once more. This individual was a close ally of Lu Qinghui, a sycophantic elder intent on publicly ridiculing Nan Gonghao and Luo Jiuqi, hoping to gain favor upon Lu Qinghui's return. Luo Jiuqi's countenance darkened, her voice icy as she retorted, as the esteemed master of a peak and an elder, how dare you mock your fellow disciples? Your years of cultivation have evidently been squandered. Anger coursed through her veins as she lashed out, unwilling to hold back. The elders were taken aback, for Luo Jiuqi was typically reticent, even perceived as somewhat weak. Many peak masters held her in low regard. It was only recently, in her bid to secure a martial arts qualification for Qin Shuyao and her companions, that she had shown some backbone, but it had not garnered significant attention. Now, her public reprimand astonished the elders of the Yingnu sect. The elder who had been chastised fumed. I offered you my advice with good intentions. Yet you respond with venomous words. Clearly, your cultivation is lacking. If you despise my kind words, I shall speak plainly. The quality of the elixir reflects its creator. This concoction is utterly ruined, unusable, and anyone who consumes it will perish. Are you satisfied now? Boom! A golden lightning dragon descended from the heavens, emanating a terrifying aura. Striking the charred elixir, many Saint Kings were startled, believing they could not withstand such a force. The ordinary disciples of the Yingnu sect trembled, nearly prostrating themselves. The dragon was overwhelmingly powerful. What kind of elixir had Nan Gonghao truly concocted? It was as if the heavens were envious of its existence, intent on its destruction. The lightning dragon crashed down upon the charred elixir, unleashing a tempest of thunder, engulfing the entire sky. All present believed the elixir was doomed. Only a supreme holy herb could withstand such an assault. Though the Xinyuan Dan was formidable, it did not reach the level of a supreme holy herb. Yet, just as the crowd reached a consensus, a crisp cracking sound resonated, small yet striking amidst the thunderous cacophony. The sound resembled the cracking of an eggshell. Before anyone could react, a radiant light burst forth from the sky, emanating from the charred elixir. The outer shell of the blackened elixir had cracked, revealing a small core radiating with a spectrum of colors. Although it was merely 1/10 the size of the outer shell, its energy had been purified at least 100-fold. More astonishingly, it was entwined with the essence of 20 different Daos. Consuming it would grant instantaneous comprehension of a Dao and offer comprehensive enhancement to the user. Witnessing this spectacle, the eyes of all Saint Kings glimmered with envy. It was known that even at their level, acquiring a Dao out of thin air was an exceedingly rare occurrence. The elder who had mocked Nan Gonghao for his failure was now filled with shame, wishing to vanish into the ground. What a humiliation! Just moments ago, he had derided the elixir's creation, only for it to transform into a top-tier Shengdao Dan, a rarity among formidable powers. No, this elixir had undergone purification and divine refinement, warranting its title as Shengdao Dan. The other elders were silent, each relieved that they had refrained from speaking out earlier, for they would have faced utter disgrace. Moreover, they pondered if they might have the opportunity to procure one of these elixirs. Nan Gonghao gazed at the elixir in the sky, laughing heartily as he floated upward, seizing the elixir and effortlessly shaping it into 5 Shengdao Dan. Elder of the Punishment Hall, may I send these 2 elixirs to the Insect Valley? Nan Gonghao declared with a booming voice. The elders were instantly enlightened, realizing why Nan Gonghao had not rushed to save anyone. He intended to refine elixirs to bolster the strength of Qin Shuyao and her companions. Certainly, the elder of the Punishment Hall stated, remotely retrieving 2 elixirs to deliver to the sect's punitive location, the Insect Valley. The elders turned their attention to the Insect Valley, eager to witness the unfolding events. Approximately 15 minutes later, beams of light erupted from the Insect Valley, distinctly emanating the auras of Qin Shuyao and Qin Yan'er. Subsequently, the pillars of light shook the heavens, drawing down the power of the Tao in a thunderous cascade. Both sisters, originally at the sovereign level, had now directly ascended to saint status, having comprehended the Tao through their enlightenment. The 2 Daos they grasped were not those they had initially cultivated. Qin Shuyao's newly acquired Tao was the Tao of darkness. capable of plunging the world into shadows, sealing all perception, and, when coupled with the power of the Taiyin, could unleash a thousand-fold combat prowess. Qin Yin'er embraced the Tao of puppetry, synergizing with her intrinsic dream order to transform enemies into pliable puppets. Not only did they gain Daos, but their innate talents were also significantly enhanced, even their potential saw an increase. More astonishingly, Nan Gonghao possessed the golden light of enlightenment, which he generously shared with them. At that moment, the two sisters resembled divine beings, radiating a dazzling golden light that made it difficult for others to gaze upon them. Previously, they had struggled within the Insect Valley, battered and bruised. Now, however, they had returned to their peak condition, rampaging freely within the valley, facing no obstacles. The elder of the punishment hall observed, stating calmly, "The Insect Valley can no longer serve as a means of punishment for Qin Shuyao and her sister. Considering the circumstances, I shall terminate their punishment. Should anyone find this objectionable, feel free to voice your concerns to me." The members of the Yingnu sect exchanged wry smiles. Who would dare contest the elder of the punishment hall? They typically sought to avoid her at all costs, and now was certainly not the time to provoke trouble. Furthermore, with Nan Gonghao having created 5 Shengdao Dawn and only utilizing 2, many elders were already coveting the remaining 3. "Nan Gonghao, I knew you would return," Qin Shuyao exclaimed as she emerged from the Insect Valley, soaring through the air with a radiant smile. Qin Yin'er, however, was less restrained, calling out, "Brother Hao, you finally returned." The Insect Valley was filled with bugs. It was utterly revolting. As the two sisters approached, Qin Yin'er rushed into his embrace. Nan Gonghao held her close and then extended his hand to grasp Qin Shuyao's delicate hand. "You have both endured much suffering." Qin Shuyao, blushing at the public display of affection, appeared utterly enchanting, evoking a desire in many women to embrace her. Nan Gonghao, unreserved, pulled Qin Shuyao in his arms, enveloping both sisters in a tender embrace. Chapter 197. Nan Gongye's ex-girlfriend? Qin Shuyao was taken aback by Nan Gonghao's boldness, her heart racing as she instinctively tried to pull away. Observing her younger sister nestled comfortably in Nan Gonghao's embrace, she couldn't help but feel a tinge of discontent. Why should that be? This man was her fiancé, and they had already consummated their relationship. Yin'er was but a mere sister-in-law, yet she could be so intimately close to Nan Gonghao. Why couldn't she? With a firm resolve, Qin Shuyao steeled herself, shamelessly leaning into Nan Gonghao's arms while concealing her flushed cheeks, gently wrapping her arms around him. Surrounded by such affection, the onlookers couldn't help but feel envious. Was this not the essence of a fulfilling life? With talent, strength, and a confidant by one side. Moreover, Nan Gonghao was astoundingly handsome, and many women wished to leap into his embrace. Ahem, just a brief hug will suffice, Luo Jiuqi reminded with a scowl. At her words, Qin Shuyao seemed to be scalded, hastily withdrawing from Nan Gonghao's hold. She continually urged herself to remain composed, to adopt a more aloof demeanor. To an extent, it worked. Her face was less flushed, yet she still dared not meet Nan Gonghao's gaze. Qin Yin'er, however, remained nestled in his arms, unwilling to budge, asserting, "Master, I rarely get to see Brother Hao, so what harm is there in being close?" That unambitious little girl. Luo Jiuqi retorted with a stern expression. "If you fail to achieve results in the upcoming competition, just wait and see how I will deal with you." Upon hearing competition, Qin Shuyao's expression turned serious. Nan Gong, you have offended so many factions. They will surely send someone to cause trouble, won't they? Yet Qin Yin'er remained unfazed. Let them come. Brother Hao will defeat them all and seize another batch of resources. Nan Gonghao sighed in exasperation. I am not a professional extortionist. You are quite adept at it. Luo Jiuqi shot him a glare. She had not witnessed Nan Gonghao seize those strongholds, initially thinking he was merely stirring up trouble. Upon seeing the resources he had just acquired, she realized he had outright plundered those strongholds. This would undoubtedly provoke those factions deeply. Observing Luo Jiuqi's anxious demeanor, Nan Gonghao contemplated offering some words of comfort. However, as he scrutinized her worried expression, he suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. They had not spent much time together, and he had been preoccupied with various matters. Thus he had not closely examined Luo Jiuqi's features. She was indeed youthful and beautiful, as all the members of the Yingnu Zone were. Yet, the more he looked, the more he felt she resembled someone he knew. Luo Jiuqi sensed Nan Gonghao's gaze upon her and felt a bit awkward. After all, he was quite handsome, and being stared at by him, even the most dignified of women would feel a hint of shyness. The nearby Qin Shuiao and her companions noticed Nan Gonghao's unwavering attention on Luo Jiuqi and displayed their displeasure. Especially Qin Yin'er, who angrily exclaimed, "Brother Hao, isn't it enough to have us sisters? Besides, Yin Wushuang is also accompanying you. Do you now covet our master?" Qin Shuiao also felt a pang of unhappiness. Meanwhile, Yin Xiaoqiao mused privately. If Nan Gonghao had affections for her master and could accept her, could she not also pursue him? Nan Gonghao, how can you be so lacking in decorum? Luo Jiuqi said with a hint of annoyance. No, I merely find you reminiscent of someone, though I cannot quite place who. Nan Gonghao replied, frowning in deep thought. Luo Jiuqi responded with a trace of disdain. Such flattery will not work on me. I am thousands of years your senior. Qin Yin'er chimed in, Brother Hao, you have never flirted with me like that. Flirt? The moment I see someone, I simply leap into their arms, Qin Shuiao mocked. Oomph. You are the one planning to elope with Brother Hao. How can you even say that to me? Qin Yin retorted sharply. Her words left Qin Shuiao feeling somewhat embarrassed, and she immediately shot a glare at Nan Gonghao. You need to rein her in. Yet Nan Gonghao paid no heed, his focus remaining on Luo Jiuqi. Angered and embarrassed by his gaze, Luo Jiuqi scolded, Do you believe I would send you tumbling down the mountain? No, I truly see a resemblance. Have you been to the Dong Huang domain? Nan Gonghao hesitated. Ironically, I have never been there, Luo Jiuqi scoffed. She genuinely had not, as the Dong Huang domain was rather remote. This only perplexed Nan Gonghao further. Suddenly, a revelation struck him. Do you know my father? Upon uttering this, Luo Jiuqi visibly panicked, hastily covering up. Of course I know your father, the Zhen Yushun Wang Nan Gongyi. He was even more arrogant than you. No, I meant, did you have a romantic relationship with my father? Nan Gonghao asked, his expression peculiar. I vaguely recall my mother mentioning that if my father had married you, I would not have been born with a Tianqian divine body. Nan Gonghao slapped his thigh. Yes, I remember now. My father has kept your portrait. I saw it once. Or else how would I remember you? Really? Luo Jiuqi instinctively exhibited a look of surprise. However, she quickly realized the implications and hastily concealed her expression. I meant to say that your father is rather frivolous for keeping my portrait, yet, no matter how she tried to mask her feelings, those around them had already discerned the truth. Luo Jiuqi had undoubtedly shared an intimate history with Nan Gonghao's father, and even now, she found it hard to forget. Qin Shuiao and Qin Yin'er were both taken aback, realizing their master was, in fact, the former girlfriend of their future father-in-law. Yet, it was clear that Luo Jiuqi had previously harbored resentment towards Nan Gonghao. It all made sense now. Love could indeed breed contempt. Observing Luo Jiuqi's flustered demeanor, Nan Gonghao raised his hands in surrender. I just remembered this odd connection. If this is the case, I shall no longer reside in Qianling Mountain. Oomph. That is unnecessary. I am not so petty. Luo Jiuqi's expression turned icy as she gritted her teeth. Besides, I was the one who rejected your father. The surrounding women fell silent, but they felt that Luo Jiuqi was likely lying. The Zhen Yushun Wang Nangong Yi was such an outstanding prodigy. How could Luo Jiuqi have taken the initiative to end things? Perhaps it was due to Nan Gonghao's mother intervening that they parted ways. However, Nan Gonghao remarked, I know, my father once said he did not understand why you left. However, he praised you, stating that you were an incredibly powerful female prodigy. Although your talent was average, your perseverance was remarkable. Perhaps in the end, you would surpass others. Upon hearing this, a glimmer of emotion flickered in Luo Jiuqi's eyes. Yet she stubbornly replied, Do I need his praise? Indeed, you do not. Then I shall take my leave, Nan Gonghao said with a smile. I told you. You don't have to leave. You can stay on a mountain, Luo Jiuqi replied impatiently. Very well. It just so happens that I can instruct Shuiao and the others in their cultivation and combat techniques. Nan Gonghao decided to conduct a crash course for the two girls. In the upcoming competition, there would be countless prodigies, and securing victory would not be an easy feat. Chapter 198. You must part with reluctance. Hearing Nan Gonghao's words, Luo Jiuqi coldly remarked, You and your father are equally arrogant. Do my disciples require your guidance? I intended to teach them how to effectively combine the power of the great Tao. Nan Gonghao clarified. Upon hearing this, Luo Jiuqi initially wanted to refuse, but thought better of it and remained silent. In terms of utilizing the great Tao, she indeed could not match Nan Gonghao. After all, he had fused over 20 types of great Tao, making him extraordinarily powerful. Noticing Luo Jiuqi no longer opposed him, but rather turned to leave, Nan Gonghao faced the two girls. Where do you reside? Please lead me there. Qin Shuiyao nodded and guided Nan Gonghao to the mountain, to her own quarters. Although this was a female sect, many members shared accommodations. Qin Shuiyao and her sister were favored, and thus had their own separate quarters. Upon entering the courtyard, Qin Shuiyao suppressed her embarrassment and led Nan Gonghao to her bedroom, saying, "You may stay here from now on." Qin Yinner was infuriated at this sight, sister. You put on such a pure facade in front of outsiders, only to bring brother Hao to your bed upon returning home? Qin Shuiyao was infuriated. This is my fiancé, and moreover, we have already consummated our relationship. What is wrong with living together? You two have already shared a bed, but I have not. So brother Hao should rightfully be with me. Qin Yinner retorted with confidence. You are still young, and besides, your position is not justified. Qin Shuiyao countered stubbornly. Nan Gonghao sat on the bed, observing the heated debate between the two women, and could not help but suggest, why not both together? In your dreams. Qin Shuiyao was the first to refuse. Qin Yinner hesitated somewhat, but upon seeing Qin Shuiyao's rejection, her irritation flared. Humph, I wouldn't want that either. Seeing this, Nan Gonghao felt exasperated. Fine, continue your argument. I will step outside to ponder how to guide you. With that, he rose and exited the room. In the courtyard, he could still faintly hear the sisters bickering. Shaking his head, Nan Gonghao immersed himself in the depths of the chaos Qinglian, contemplating the powers of the great Tao he had acquired. Although his talent was formidable, allowing him to freely combine the great Taos, he had also relied on the strength of the chaos Qinglian. Each lotus leaf of the chaos Qinglian represented a form of the great Tao's power, layered and interconnected, much like the powers of the great Tao themselves. It was from this that Nan Gonghao grasped the methods of combining these powers. At that moment, while he was engrossed in the chaos Qinglian, images of the two women's adeptness in their respective great Tao powers flashed through his mind. Thus, he continued to labor until nightfall. Upon awakening from his meditation, he found the two women ignoring each other, sitting on either side of him. Have you reached a conclusion? Nan Gonghao asked in surprise. We drew lots. Qin Shuiyao gritted her teeth. Naturally, she was dissatisfied with this suggestion, as she was the legitimate fiancée. Qin Yannia, on the other hand, felt even more aggrieved, having been willing to accompany her sister in supporting Nan Gonghao, but Qin Shuiyao obstinately refused. Nan Gonghao lightly shook his head and said, I believe you two need not argue any further. Whether you can even sleep during this time is uncertain. Let's focus on cultivation first. At this, the two women realized that they had a significant challenge ahead of them. First, summon your great Tao powers. I shall guide you. Nan Gonghao's expression turned serious. The two women calmed down slightly and quickly complied. As they summoned their great Tao powers, their moods became more serene. Following Nan Gonghao's instructions, they continuously fused their powers, striving to unleash their utmost strength. For a full 7 days, Nan Gonghao devoted himself to training the two women, significantly enhancing their combat capabilities. On this day, the time had come for the sect competition, with all the affiliated forces of the Ying sect sending their prodigies to participate or to observe and learn. These affiliated forces were not exclusively comprised of women. Many men were present as well, though their movements were restricted. Other powers had also arrived, including representatives from the 7 great powers. Notably, the prodigies of the Xingma sect exuded an imposing aura upon their arrival, clearly attempting to display their might to Nan Gonghao. However, Nan Gonghao paid them no mind, as he sensed that the two women were struggling to break into the top 3. He pondered whether he should challenge everyone himself to clear the battlefield for the two women. Yet, such a thought was appealing but impractical. The number of participants exceeded 1,000, with numerous prodigies among them. Even the representatives from the 7 great powers were far from weak. If Nan Gonghao were to engage each of them in battle, he would likely be utterly exhausted. Let us take it step by step. After all, I believe you can make it to the finals, he said to the two women. Both felt a twinge of guilt, aware that they had been lagging behind. After all, those from the central continent had been exposed to the great Tao powers from a young age, benefiting from various resources, while they hailed from the remote Dongwang region. Even being part of a first-rate force there, had they come from an immortal force, they might have been able to contend with these prodigies. While the 3 were discussing strategies, a voice rang out from outside. Master said the time has come for us to prepare. We must gather at Wufeng early tomorrow. Understood, Nan Gonghao replied. Yet, the speaker, Yan Xiaoqiao, hesitated at the door. Confused, Nan Gonghao approached and opened the door, asking, Is something the matter? Many people are looking for you. Yan Xiaoqiao replied with a wry smile. Those from the first-rate forces? Nan Gonghao inquired nonchalantly. Yes, and also from the supreme forces, especially someone from the Shengma sect. Yin Chao's expression turned serious. Before Nan Gonghao could respond, he suddenly sensed something and looked into the distance. There, a figure gracefully descended, a stunning woman, radiating an ethereal charm, gazing at Nan Gonghao with an enchanting smile. Finding you is no easy task. Yin Xiao's expression changed drastically. She is Princess Mo Ning of the Invincible Dynasty, a 9-star saint. Recognizing her, Nan Gonghao stepped outside and calmly asked, "Do you require something?" Qin Shuyao and the other two quickly followed him outside. Princess Mo Ning surveyed the three striking women before her and could not help but